Hello, fictional. Welcome to the crossover What Ifs. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the bloodbender and possessed by Shia? Part 1. Huge shout out to WINDSTORM16 for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Korra couldn't believe her eyes at what she and Mako had just seen happen. It shouldn't be possible, the ability to take away a person's bending was something only the Avatar was capable of, and only Aang has shown the ability to Emergence in who knows how long. Something that not even Korra has learned to do yet. But they just saw it happen. Aman succeeded in doing the impossible, he took away lightning bolt Zolt's bending, permanently. If they hadn't seen Zolt's lightning dissipating into fire before the fire vanished entirely, they wouldn't have believed it. But Zolt's attempts to bend fire afterwards all ended in failure, he was a non-bender now. That shouldn't be possible. Korra muttered, worried and even fearful at what she had just seen. But it is, and Aman's about to do the same to Bolin. Said Mako, also worried and fearful like Korra, though not just for himself, but also for his brother, who was currently bound on the stage with the rest of the triple threat triads. All of whom were about to lose their bending, as well. Though just before the second bender, one that Mako recognized as Shady Shin, could be pushed forward to lose his bending next. Something strange and surprising for everyone had happened next. Someone wearing a long black cloak walked up onto the stage, getting everyone's attention. You'll have to forgive me, but members of the audience are not permitted on stage. If you wish to ask something, you may wait until after I have cleansed these benders. Said Aman. And what if I'm just giving you one more bender to cleanse? Said the stranger, their voice revealing they were Guy. What? Thought Korra, and she was sure everyone else was thinking the same thing. This guy was a bender, and he was willingly exposing himself after what they all just saw, even more so that he's offering to have his bending taken away. If it wasn't for Mako, Korra would have rushed into stage to try and talk some sense into this guy, not knowing why he'd willingly allow his bending to be taken. Wait. You can't just charge up there and try fighting them all. You'll only be captured. Mako hissed, with Korra giving him an annoyed look. Well, if you have a plan, I'm all ears. Retorted Korra lowly, not wanting to see anyone else have their bending ripped away by Aman as some twisted form of equality. Let's see what happens. Said Mako, unable to deny the curiosity he felt as to why this person actually wants Aman to take his bending away. Meanwhile on the stage, the Kai blockers moved to subdue the bender, only to be stopped by Aman raising his hand. This is a surprise. You want me to take away your bending? Questioned Aman, not actually expecting any bender to willingly offer to have their bending taken away. The person nodded shakily, everyone now noticing their entire body is shaking uncontrollably. Yes, I want it gone. I can't control it. Anytime I even try to use it or learn to control it, people get hurt when I try. I didn't want to, but it just happened. Even when I tried isolating myself away from people, they would still get hurt. So, I want it gone, forever, so I don't hurt anyone again. Said the stranger, looking at their shaking hands, with Aman narrowing his eyes at this, wondering how a person's bending could be that uncontrollable, or even what kind of bender he is. Though he also couldn't pass up the chance to further improve his image amongst his followers. Then you have made a correct choice in approaching me. Said Aman, walking up and placing a hand on the stranger's shoulder, before addressing the crowd. Behold, proof that even benders, like this boy, know the truth of bending and seek to have themselves cleansed of its evil. These benders who willingly approach and desire to have their bending removed, they will be welcomed as equals. This is the next step in creating a world where everyone is equal. Aman declared, as the crowd cheered for the equalist leader, seeing he was even willing to offer benders a chance to become equal to them, as Aman looked at the stranger who was shaking even harder now. This guy's insane. Mako said, repeating what he said earlier, after Aman claimed he could take away a person's bending. What do you think is wrong with him? Said Korra, seeing that whoever this stranger was, the way he was shaking wasn't normal, the Avatar thinking it was almost like his body was fighting against him. Kneel, and when you rise, you will be amongst your new brothers and sisters. Aman said, motioning the stranger to kneel, so he could remove his bending. The stranger nodding, before turning around in a slow jerky manner, before trying to drop to their knees. Only to look as if they were stuck or their body refused to obey their commands. Everyone watching the scene in confusion, not sure what was going on, with some in the crowd starting to mutter amongst themselves. Korra narrowed her eyes in confusion, wondering what was happening, only for her eyes to widen in shock when she caught sight of the stranger's hands and the way they were moving. Their fingers being bent and rigid, as if they were controlling a marionette. The Avatar remembering a lesson Katara had taught her about waterbenders who made such movements with their hands. Mako, that guy's a waterbender. Said Korra, making the firebender look at her in confusion. How can you tell he's a waterbender? Mako asked, only to stiffen when he heard several sickening pops echo around the room, looking back at the stage to see the stranger's legs unwillingly bending until they were on their knees. Because he somehow just bloodbent himself, said Korra gravely, while wondering how this person could perform bloodbending without a full moon. Everyone who knew about bloodbending was also shocked at what they were seeing right now, even more so that they were actually bloodbending themselves. None being more shocked than Aman himself at seeing another bloodbender who didn't require the full moon. Though everyone was pulled from their shock when the stranger gasped as if in pain before their hands fell onto the stage, their entire body shaking uncontrollable. "No, it's coming," the stranger said, gritting their teeth. "What is?" demanded Aman, looking around for whatever was coming, wondering if this was a trick. "You all need to run," said the stranger as they let out a loud ear-piercing scream at the end, making several people jump in shock. With everyone then being horrified when they saw blood being forced out of the person's body through their pores. No one being able to move or speak at the terrifying sight as more and more blood spilled out onto the stage. Yet somehow, the stranger was still alive and conscious. All the while they still screamed in pain at what was happening. "Those spirits," Korra muttered, covering her mouth in shock at what she was seeing, while feeling something deep inside her practically screaming danger and that she should get away. Then to the crowd's and equalist's further shock, the blood began rising off the stage and spreading over the person's body, covering them in a skin red and black suit. The sight only becoming more terrifying when the stranger's screams of pain began turning into maniacal laughter. No one could move as they were forced to watch the horrifying sight, even Aman found himself rooted in place, unable to react or move a muscle. It wasn't long until the person's body was completely covered in the blood-made suit, with the mask having a mouth filled with sharp jagged teeth, while two large white flame-like eyes formed over their own normal ones. Just as the transformation ended, the person, or creature, went completely still and silent, which only unnerved everyone even more than the crazed laughter. Though soon a psychotic grin stretched across the creature's face before it suddenly spoke. "Oh Naruto, did you really think that I would just let you get rid of your bending that easily? That you could get rid of me that easily?" said the creature, everyone remaining frozen in shock, along with confusion at who the creature was talking to. Is he talking to himself? Korra thought, realizing the creature wasn't talking to anyone, only to himself, or maybe it was talking to whoever that person it's now covering was. "You truly are foolish if you thought you could escape me like that. Even if I let you lose your bending, I'd just jump into another host. And how unfortunate for you, you unknowingly hand-delivered one straight to me," said the creature, standing up and faced Aman with a crazed grin on his face, while the equalist leader finally came out of his shock. "Who are you?" demanded Aman, the creature laughing wickedly as it held up a clawed hand. "You claim the spirits have spoken with you, that they gave you your power, yet you don't recognize when a spirit is standing before you. I am the spirit of blood. But now, my host and I have a new name, we are Carnage." Carnage roared as tendrils shot out of his back, whipping around wildly, as everyone stepped back in fear as the sight and that a spirit was standing before them, one admitting to using that bender as a host, though also felt hope that Aman would defeat the evil spirit. Only for the crowd and equalists to be shocked and horrified at what Carnage said next. "And the fact these fools actually believe your lies just shows how pathetic these sacks of blood really are. You've never even met a spirit, let alone heard one speaking. That power to take away a person's bending is bending. You're a waterbender, a bloodbender to be more precise," Carnage revealed as everyone gasped in shock and horror that their leader was a bender himself. "Aman's a bender?" Mako said, shocked by this revelation. "But how can he take a person's bending with bloodbending?" wondered Korra, having never heard of an ability like that before, with bloodbending. "Lies. Do not believe this insane and evil spirit. One only needs to look at this being and know it is no friend of humanity, merely a monster seeking destruction," said Aman, trying to save face in the revelation of his bloodbending being exposed, only for Carnage to laugh mockingly at his words. "Are you really so desperate that you have to keep making up more lies? Even more pathetic, you think you can lie to me about bloodbending? I'm the spirit of blood, I create, I control, and I consume blood, and I recognize a child of blood when I see one. And just like my host, you don't need a full moon to bloodbend. But if you insist on lying, go ahead, I have better things to do," Carnage said, letting out a shriek as he suddenly lunged at the still-bound Triple Threat Triad members. Before, to everyone's horror, the creature's hands morphed into blades that stabbed through the Earthbender and Firebender's chests. While Carnage opened his mouth before biting down right onto Shady Shin's throat. Everyone screamed in horror and shock at the sight, even more so when the Triple Threat Triad members' bodies began shriveling up as the creature drained them of their blood. A few Kai blockers were able to snap out of their shock and horror before charging the spirit to try and incapacitate it. Only for the tendrils on his back to impale them and began draining their blood as well. Once the creature had fully drained the bodies, it tossed them aside before roaring at the terrified crowd before its hands morphed into axes next. Ahahahahaha. Oh, it's been so long since we had so many humans to slaughter. Try to make this fun. Ahahahaha. Laughed Carnage before leaping into the crowd and bringing its axe hands down on two unfortunate people, cutting them straight down the middle before proceeding to begin slicing and cutting apart anyone near him. This sending the crowd into a frenzy as everyone tried escaping the growing massacred, while Korra and Mako backed away, looking at the sight with wide eyes. "We need to grab Bolin and then get out of here," said Mako, knowing they didn't have the time for subtlety and simply needed to get far away from whatever this thing was. Nodding in agreement, Korra looked around before grimacing when she saw Carnage slam an unfortunate person's head into a machine repeatedly until it was nothing but paste. While seeing that it had also broken some pipes, releasing a large amount of steam. Taking the chance, Korra bent the steam to cover the entire area, providing them some cover from the creature's sight. "Let's go," said Korra as they discarded their disguises while returning Mako's scarf to him before the two ran towards the stage to grab Bolin. Meanwhile, Carnage paused in his massacre, holding his latest victim by their throat while looking around through the sudden steam before noticing Aman and his remaining guards trying to escape. "Did I say you could leave?" Carnage roared, tearing off his victim's head before jumping towards Aman, his tendrils shooting out and impaling his guards, with the lieutenant trying to strike him with his kali sticks. Only for Carnage to dodge the strike before stabbing his hand straight into the man's chest and ripping his heart out, which Carnage then proceeded to devour, much to everyone's growing horror. The spirit then looked at Aman with mad bloody smile, before laughing wickedly. "Some leader you are, rather than stay to protect what followers I didn't slaughter, you choose to run to save your own skin. I'd call you a coward, but that's actually the smart thing to do right now. Too bad for you, I don't like weaklings having access to my powers," said Carnage before rushing towards Aman, with the Equalist leader being forced to backpedal away from the slashes from the spirit's claws. Aman tried using his Kai blocking to incapacitate Carnage, only for him to laugh off his strikes and backhand him, knocking the man across the room. "If you really aren't a bender, then how will you survive this?" Carnage said, rotating his arms as the surrounding steam was condensed into water, which Carnage then froze into razor-sharp icicles before launching all of them straight at Aman. Aman's eyes widened behind his mask at the danger he was in, knowing he wouldn't be able to dodge all of the icicles. And if even one hit him, he was as good as dead. Mentally cursing, knowing he didn't have a choice, Aman raised his hand stopping the icicles in their tracks. Much to the remaining Equalists and non-benders' shock and despair at seeing undeniable proof that their leader is a bender. And there it is. So much for that chosen by the spirits bullshit. Carnage taunted as Aman scowled behind his mask at seeing his entire plan falling apart before his eyes. "You'll pay for your interference," Aman shouted before launching the icicles right back at Carnage, only for the spirit to wave his arms, sending the icicles shooting off to the sides, impaling anyone unfortunate enough to be in their paths. Roaring, Carnage then leapt at Aman, who was beginning to feel fear creeping up within him at realizing he could really die. Fueled by desperation, Aman tried bloodbending Carnage, hoping he'd be able to at least incapacitate him for a while, long enough for him to escape and try to salvage his plans. Carnage felt Aman's attempt to bloodbend him and couldn't help but laugh that the fool really thought that would work. Deciding that death would be too merciful right now, Carnage instead grabbed Aman and threw him into the center of the room. Then to everyone's further shock, Carnage stomped on the ground as Aman's wrists and ankles were restrained in earth cuff before he was forced up onto his knees with his arms restrained behind him. "Boo boo boo but, you're the Avatar," Bolin shouted, looking between Korra and Mako, unable to comprehend what they just saw, that Carnage could earthbend and waterbend. How's that possible?" said Mako, looking at the restrained Aman with wide eyes. I don't know," Korra muttered, not sure how it's possible for Carnage or his host to be an earthbender and waterbender at the same time. Carnage then sped up to Aman and grabbed his head, knocking his mask off his face, revealing his scar. Only for Carnage to rake his claws across Aman's face, making him cry out and revealing the scar was only makeup. "Even the scar is fake, is there even anything real about you, or are you really just one giant lie?" said Carnage, laughing at how pathetic Aman was with all his lies, while the still living followers were only further demoralized at seeing yet another lie from their leader. "Well, go on, do it," Aman shouted, seeing he was beaten and going to die, but refused to let Carnage be satisfied at seeing how afraid he really was. Only to feel a shiver go down his spine when Carnage laughed and turned him around and forced his head backwards, the spirit looking down at him with a malevolent grin. "Oh, I'm not going to kill you, not yet anyway. No, I want to enjoy your suffering as long as I can, and what better way than to watch your plans be swallowed by an ocean of blood." And look at it this way, since you've preached so much about equality, then let's put you on the same level as the sheep following you," said Carnage, before to Amon's complete horror, he put his thumb on the equalist leader's forehead, with Aman feeling his connection to his bending being severed, feeling the same thing that he had done to so many benders before him. Once that was done, Carnage released Aman and tossed him aside, before looking at the remaining people and raised his hand. "Now, where were we?" Carnage said as his claws extended, before he resumed his massacre, with everyone once again trying to escape the murderous beard. All while Korra, Mako, and Bolin were shocked at what they saw, not only at Carnage bending multiple elements, but him taking away Amon's bending as well. Though the three were able to snap out of their shock when Carnage began killing people again and quickly ran for the exit. The fire ferrets quickly ran outside and jumped down off the balcony, with Korra whistling and calling Naga to them. "Naga, let's go," Korra said, as the three jumped onto the polar bear dog, which took off running away from the rally. "Oh, thank goodness, you guys showed up. First Aman almost taking my bending, then whatever that freaky red thing was. What even was that? How could it bend water and earth? Was it really a spirit?" asked Bolin, shivering at remembering how close that thing had been to him when it killed the Triple Threat Triad members. "Whatever it is, let's just try to put as much distance between it and us as we can. We also need to tell somebody about what we just saw and of that thing being on the loose," Mako said, knowing that the city needed to know about Amon's now former ability to take away a person's bending and whatever that thing is, running around killing people. Korra nodded in agreement, knowing she had to tell Tenzin the moment she got back to Air Temple Island. Though she also couldn't help but wonder what Carnage really was and about the person in the suit. How he was practically begging Aman to take away his bending before he turned into a killing machine, draining bodies of their blood. Even removing Aman's bending as well, after exposing him, as if the entire thing was just a show it was putting on. Could that be all it was? A show to put on for everyone to see and know he's out there. But then who is that person from before? Carnage called him his host, is he being controlled? Korra wondered, feeling like there was more to it than what they saw. Unfortunately, Korra was pulled from her thoughts as the three stiffened when they heard a familiar shriek behind them. Guys," Bolin said nervously as he slowly turned his head, only to scream in fear at seeing Carnage running after them on all fours. "Korra, can't she go any faster?" shouted Mako, shocked that the creature was able to keep up with a polar bear dog and it seemed to be gaining on them. "Naga. Get Mako and Bolin out of here," Korra said, making the brothers look at her with wide eyes. "Us, what about you?" Mako demanded. "I'm going to stall him for as long as I can," answered Korra, much to their shock and disbelief. "Are you kidding? After we saw it'll tear you apart," said Bolin, not wanting Korra to risk her life fighting that thing. "It can try," Korra stated, then before either of them could argue against her plan, Korra leapt off Naga's back right towards the creature. Just as Carnage was about to swipe at her, Korra launched a fire blast right at his face, sending flying backwards crashing into a wall. The spirit looking at Korra with a mad grin before flipping onto the wall and sticking to it like a spider. "Hahaha, it's been so long since someone actually hit me. It'll make killing you all the more fun, Avatar," said Carnage before jumping at Korra with his claws turning into blades. Korra stomped on the ground raising an earth wall, blocking the creature, only to be surprised when he managed to slice clean through the stone. The Avatar only having a moment to jump back to avoid being cut into pieces by the spirit's claws. Only to gasp in surprise as his arm morphed into a tendril that shot forward and wrapped around her body before proceeding to spin her around, slamming the girl into several objects. Round and round they go, which way they stop, no one knows. Ahahahaha. Carnage laughed before releasing Korra, sending the Avatar crashing into a sadomobile. Groaning, Korra stood up, knowing she'll definitely be feeling that in the morning, before quickly pushing the pain back to focus on the fight. Rotating her arms, Korra caused a geyser of water to shoot out from the sewer below Carnage, launching him into the air before proceeding to shoot several fireballs at the spirit. Only for the creature to bend the water around him and launch it at the fireballs, dousing them. Carnage then propelled himself towards the ground and slammed its fists down, causing an earth wave to rise up and rush towards Korra. Something that still surprised the Avatar, seeing the spirit able to bend two elements. She was only able to create another earth wall at the last second, saving herself, with the creature leaping over the wall, roaring loudly, and unleashing a blast of crimson flames at her. Acting quickly, Korra bent the water in front of her before freezing it, with the flames impacting the ice and creating a mist. With Korra stomping on the ground, causing it to open up and suck her in, hiding her from the creature so she can have some time to form a plan. Okay, somehow he's able to bend 3 elements, potentially 4, if he knows airbending as well. He's able to morph his body into weapons and is also really durable. Just what is this thing? Korra thought, not sure what she's facing and isn't even sure if she could beat it. When the ground suddenly opened up above her, Korra didn't hesitate to make an earth pillar and slamming it up into Carnage before kicking her leg up, unleashing an arc of flames at him. Figuring the only chance she had to beat Carnage was by hitting him hard and fast until he went down. With that in mind, Korra jumped out of the hole before proceeding to unleash a torrent of water at the spirit, freezing the water the moment it made contact with the creature. When she stopped, Carnage was now frozen in a large block of ice. Though the avatar didn't stop there, stomping on the ground, she created 2 earth walls on either side of Carnage before having them move towards it, slamming together. This breaking the ice and leaving him crushed between them. Making an opening in the walls, Korra then proceeded to thrust her fists forward, releasing a large blast of fire into the opening and towards the creature. While she wasn't sure if it'd be enough to take it down, Korra hoped it was enough to at least slow the spirit down for a few moments. Finally, Korra cut off the flames and looked at the partially melted earth walls, panting at the energy she just used. Well, that wasn't so difficult. Korra stated, after searching for any movement but was glad not to see any, showing the creature was taken care of, at least for the moment, since something was telling the avatar that wasn't enough to kill it. Unfortunately, before Korra could leave to meet up with her teammates and Naga, she stopped as her eyes widened when she heard a familiar laughter. Looking, the girl couldn't believe her eyes as she saw red liquid leaking out of the walls before rising up and reforming into Carnage, who smiled wickedly at her. "That all you got, Avatar?" Carnage taunted as Korra unwillingly took a step back, not believing that he didn't have a scratch on him, even after all that. What are you?" Korra asked before gasping in shock and pain when her body began twisting and turning against her will as she was put under the creature's bloodbending grip while the creature laughed wickedly as its claws grew very long, dragging the tips along the grounds, creating sparks. "We are Carnage." Carnage roared before charging at Korra to slice her into pieces, with the avatar closing her eyes, ready for the pain. Only it never came. Instead, Korra suddenly found herself free of the bloodbending grip while hearing Carnage falling to the ground screaming. Looking, Korra was surprised when she saw Carnage rolling on the ground as if in pain or fighting something within him. No, I won't go back yet. I could have her power. No one could stop us, we would be invincible. You can't make me go back yet," screamed Carnage as Korra slowly circled it, ready to fight should it suddenly attack her again, though she was also confused by the way it sounded like he was talking to someone. Could that person be fighting Carnage for control? Korra thought, wondering if that's what they have to deal with, constantly fighting for control of their own body against Carnage. Before Korra could contemplate this further, Carnage suddenly went limp on the ground before the red and black suit seemed to recede back into the body of person inside it. With the person now no longer having their cloak anymore, allowing Korra to get a good look at them. Only for Korra to be shocked at seeing it wasn't a grown man, instead it was a 17-year-old teenager, the same age as her. He had unique bright spiky blonde hair with blood-red tips, pale skin, and 3 whisker marks on his cheeks, reminding Korra of a fox or cat. His attire consisted of black sandals, black pants with a red splatter pattern on them, and a crimson-red shirt. All of which were torn and damaged. He did say that he tried to go into self-exile. Is this a result of it? Korra thought as she took note of how pale he was and the state that his clothes were in. Though, she couldn't see what color his eyes were at the moment, given he was currently unconscious. Korra observed the teen for a few moments, wondering what she should do. Part of her knew she should take him straight to the Metalbenders to be locked away for everything he did. But another part knew that what happened likely wasn't his fault and instead whatever that spirit inside him was. "I really hope I don't regret this," thought Korra, going over and picking the teen up, wrapping an arm around his waist and throwing his arm over her shoulder as the avatar began the journey to find Naga and then get back to Air Temple Island. Later. Korra walked up to Tenzin, still carrying the teen with her, with the airbending master spotting his charge and quickly walked up to her. "Thank goodness. I was just about to send out a search party. Are you alright? And who is this?" Tenzin asked, putting a hand on Korra's shoulder while looking at the stranger curiously, with the avatar shaking her head before setting the teen against the railing. "Korra, what happened? Did you find your friend?" questioned Tenzin, worried something might have happened. "Yes, but I was at an equalist rally. I saw Aman," Korra revealed, much to Tenzin's shock. "What?" Tenzin said. "He could take people's bending away. For good," said Korra as the realization began sinking in that before his own bending was taken, Aman had the ability to take away a person's bending, he could have taken away her bending. That's impossible. Only the avatar has ever possessed that ability," Tenzin said, knowing for a fact that only the avatar had that kind of power while missing the past tense that Korra used in his shock. "But I saw him do it. Korra said, needing Tenzin to believe her to understand just how dangerous Aman had been. I believe you. I don't know how Aman has achieved this power, but this means the revolution is more dangerous than ever. No bender is safe. Tenzin said, gravely as he looked out at Republic City. I wouldn't worry about Aman anymore. He's taken care of. Said Korra, knowing without his bending, Aman wasn't a threat to anyone, especially with all his lies exposed. What are you talking about? Asked Tenzin, now confused by what she meant. That's not all, I saw something else. Something horrible. Said Korra, wrapping her arms around herself, remembering when Carnage first appeared and all the people he killed, with Tenzin looking at her in worry wondering what other problems they had to worry about. Korra, what did you see? Does it have to do with this boy? Tenzin asked, needing to know what they're dealing with, if not Aman then who, while glancing at the stranger, wondering if he might be involved in what Korra was talking about. Tenzin, what you know about Sai, the spirit of blood? Said Korra, with Tenzin's eyes widening in shock and horror at her question, while turning deathly pale at how she knew that name. How do you know that name? Said Tenzin, with Korra looking at the unconscious teen, with dread starting to well up in the airbending master. Because I just fought him. Korra revealed, wanting to know who this was and what that thing inside of him was. She just hopes that she hasn't brought a monster into her home. Korra sighed as she sat within a guest room where the stranger from the Equalist rally was resting. Though the Avatar did remember that Carnage called him Naruto when he first appeared. I guess that's his name, Naruto. Korra thought as she looked at Naruto's unconscious form on the bed before glancing at Tenzin, who stood by the door with a stoic expression. 3 days have passed since the disaster at the Equalist rally and Korra bringing Naruto to Air Temple Island, with the boy having not woken up since their fight. Korra figuring that Carnage taking control of him and then forcefully taking back control took a lot out of him. After bringing Naruto to the island and getting him settled in a room, Korra had been pulled into Tenzin's study where she had finally been able to get some answers. Flashback. Tenzin paced the length of his study as dozens of thoughts raced through his head. After getting over his initial shock and horror at hearing Korra ask him whose eye is, along with the knowledge that the boy she brought to his family's home may somehow be connected to him. The airbending master had been tempted to call in and have her lock the boy up, not wanting to risk such a threat being near his family. He had only relented at Korra's insistence that the boy himself wasn't a threat, but whatever inside him was. So, Tenzin had allowed Korra to place him in a guest room, along with posting White Lotus entries around the room in case he woke up and needed to be restrained. Before taking Korra to his study to get the full story of what happened. And safe to say, Tenzin was shocked and horrified by what he heard at the knowledge that the boy may possibly have formed a pact with Zai to become his host, the resulting massacre, and the fact that he could earthbend, waterbend, and firebend, possibly airbend as well. The only thing that seemed to remotely calm him down was learning that the boy seemed to want Aman to take away his bending. Along with the fact that before Carnage, as Korra called him, could kill her, he seemed to forcefully take back control. After she had finished telling him what happened, Tenzin had simply began pacing around the room to organize his now chaotic thoughts, while Korra sat on the floor. With the Avatar starting to get impatient and wanting to finally get some answers. Tenzin. Can you stop pacing and just tell me who is I? Korra said, after reaching her limit, while also pulling Tenzin from his thoughts, as the airbending master sighed before sitting down across from the Avatar. I'm sure you've heard the story about the moon spirit and the ocean spirit. Tenzin stated, with Korra raising a brow in confusion, but nodded in response. Yeah, Master Katara told me about it, along with when she, Aang, and Sokka traveled to the Northern Water Tribe. Replied Korra, having heard plenty of stories of Aang's adventures with his friends, including how they met the ocean spirit, La, and the moon spirit, Tui. Yes, I'm sure she's told you, but I just wanted to be sure. Said Tenzin, before standing up and going over to a bookshelf where he searched for a specific scroll, before finally finding it and pulled it out. Sitting back down, Tenzin unrolled the scroll in front of Korra, with the girl being surprised to see that it showed a series of drawings, as if telling a story. Tui and La, the moon and the ocean, were among the first spirits to travel to the mortal world and assume physical forms. Together, they have been circling each other for eternity in an eternal dance, balancing each other. Good and evil, yin and yang, that is how it has always been. Tenzin said, pointing to the image of Tui and La in their physical forms of koi fish, circling each other, with Korra looking at the images as she felt entranced by it. As if they were actually moving, before Tenzin continued to speak. But that is known only after they had taken their physical forms. Before that, when they still remained in the spirit world, there is more to their story. Said Tenzin as he moved onto a new image, showing Korra who she guessed were Tui and La in their true spirit forms, but she also saw a third being. Thousands of years ago, the moon and ocean spirits were praised and revered by humanity, the ocean for providing food and nourishment, and the moon for the light it gives during their darkest times. But there was a third spirit, one who provided humanity the means to live. Zai, the blood spirit and brother of the ocean spirit. Tenzin said, with Korra's eyes widening at this knowledge. Zai and La are brothers? Questioned Korra, having never heard any mention of the ocean spirit having a brother. Yes. But while La was loved, Zai was regarded as evil and scorned, sparking hatred and jealous within Zai for being seen as evil, despite how his power and essence flowed through the veins of all living beings. But what truly drove Zai and La apart was the love they had for the moon spirit. Each brother vying for her affection, and when Tui chose La over him, Zai was enraged. Since then Zai had despised both his brother and his wife, seeking for the chance to take his revenge on them both. With the chance arriving when both spirits traveled to mortal world and taught the first waterbenders. It was then that Zai cursed La and Tui's disciples, making it so when the moon and ocean are truly united, they will be transformed into children of blood. Said Tenzin. The full moon. Korra said as she realized what that meant when the moon was full and waterbenders were at their strongest. Correct. When the moon is full, the waterbenders' power is at their strongest, strong enough to bend the water within another living creature, their very blood. During these nights, waterbenders become weak to Zai's influence and power, the spirit of blood whispering in their ears, tempting them with the power to control all those around them. Seeking those who have darkness within their hearts so they can experience the same pain and hatred as he has. It is these waterbenders that become known as children of blood, having accepted the powers Zai offers to become bloodbenders. With there being those who have enough power to not need a full moon to access this power. When Tui and La learned of what Zai had done, he was cursed by his brother and his wife, transforming him into a dark spirit. A being of pure malice and hatred who only seeks destruction wherever he goes. All the while, whispering in the ears of the children of the moon and the ocean, seeking to corrupt them into his children of blood. Tenzin said as he finished the story, with Korra gulping as she saw a drawing of Zai that looked even more terrifying than carnage. But wait, I thought bloodbending was created during the 100-Year War by Hama. And how do you even know about all this, Tenzin? Korra asked, having not been sure if Tenzin even knew who Zai was or not. To answer your first question, I'll have to answer the second. It was years ago during my father's time when he helped Police Chief Toph Bifong stop a crime lord named Jacken. A powerful waterbender and bloodbender who possessed the unique ability to bloodbend someone with his mind without the need of a full moon or any movements. It was after my father took away Jacken's bending that he sought to find out just how it was possible for someone to bloodbend. Having developed doubts that Hama was the first person capable of such a thing. It was after his time in the spirit world that he learned about Zai and wrote down what he learned. All while keeping it a secret from everyone except my mother, not wanting knowledge of Zai to become public. Tenzin explained. Katara knew? Asked Korra, surprised that her waterbending master knew about Zai. Yes, she did, though I'm sure she wishes she didn't. The idea of criminals having the power to bloodbend was bad enough, but that there was an actual spirit who could influence all waterbenders in such a way. It's why my mother hates bloodbending, for the corrupting power it gives to make good people do horrible things. Tenzin said, having learned about his mother's journey with Fire Lord Zuko to hunt down the man who killed her mother, where she had actually bloodbent someone in her anger, that being the second and only other time she did so. So it's possible for other bloodbenders to be out there. Korra said, now understanding just why Katara had gotten so angry with her when Korra once brought up bloodbending, having not fully understood why it was such a dark heart. Now seeing that it wouldn't just be taking control of another human being and treating them like a puppet, but she'd also be under Zai's influence as well. It's possible there are, and they simply are better at hiding such abilities. But it seems this boy isn't just a bloodbender, he is Zai's host as well. And can somehow earthbend and firebend by some unknown means. Said Tenzin, while frowning, as he was still wary of having the boy in his home, especially if he's the host of a truly evil spirit. Then how exactly did you find out about Zai? If Aang only told Katara, how did you find out? Korra asked with a frown, since she wondered how Tenzin knew before seeing the airbender's shoulders slump and he seemed to have aged a few years. It's due the reports we've been getting all throughout the Earth Kingdom. Tenzin said, tiredly. Reports? Korra asked warily, not sure she wanted to know. Massacres, dozens of them, entire towns of people being ripped apart, something pulled from your darkest nightmares. And all of them having one thing in common, there wasn't a drop of blood anywhere in sight. Tenzin revealed, while Korra paled at hearing this. Zai. Korra said, with Tenzin nodding at her answer. Yes. Given he is the spirit of blood, he is taking back what he believes is rightfully his, along with empowering himself as the more blood he consumes, the stronger he becomes. At first, I simply believed it to be the work of dark spirits. But after some time, I learned about Zai. Where like my father, I kept this knowledge a secret, not wanting to cause panic at this knowledge getting out. Both against waterbenders as a whole and the spirits. Tenzin said, wondering if his father had felt this conflicted at knowing such a secret but knowing why it needed to remain as such. But now it seemed that secret would soon be exposed if anyone had survived Carnage's attack and spread word of his presence. Korra gulped at this knowledge, well thankful that whoever's IS host was, they managed to take back control before he could kill her or anyone else. And while part of Korra wanted to blame him for such horrific actions, she felt that he's just as much a victim as everyone else, being controlled and used by Zai. And she'll try to help him any way she could. Then flashback. Since then, Korra's been checking on Naruto in between her airbending training, waiting for him to wake up. With Tenzin joining her this time, as from what the sentries have reported, he's been stirring more often, showing he's likely to wake up soon. As if on K, Korra saw that Naruto's eyes fluttered open, revealing they were a bright blue color with flecks of red in them. With the team glancing around the room, before looking at her and Tenzin for a moment, then up at the ceiling, while letting out a resigned-sounding sigh. How many? Naruto asked, with Korra wincing at the question, having a feeling she knew what it implied, given her knowledge of the massacres in the Earth Kingdom. How many bodies this time? Likely a couple dozen, maybe fewer, I think. Korra answered, having gotten a rough estimate of the amount of deaths after Tenzin informed the Metalbenders of the location of the rally and finding the aftermath of Carnage's attack. At least it wasn't too many this time. Muttered Naruto, with Korra wincing once again, wondering just how many times this has happened, that he's relieved the number was only a few dozen. Well, I'm Korra, the Avatar. And that's Tenzin, my airbending teacher. Korra said as she waved awkwardly at Naruto, who glanced at them for a few moments. Naruto. Replied Naruto, before sitting up, raising brow when he saw he wasn't in chains or restrained in any way, before noticing some kind of tag attached to his chest, under his shirt. What is this thing? Naruto asked. The talisman created by me and the White Lotus, used to suppress and trap dark spirits. We placed it on you to suppress I, making it so he can't control you. Hopefully, it will last long enough to find a way for us to separate him from you. Tenzin answered, with Naruto looking at him with a raised brow. Good luck with that. Said Naruto, doubting they'd find a way to remove Carnage. Even if they did, he'd just jump into another host, like he said he would. Something he admittedly hadn't considered when he tried getting Aman to take his bending. Only thinking of having it in Zygon, so he wouldn't kill anyone else. But that plan obviously failed, and at this point, Naruto's resigning himself to being stuck with Zai for the rest of his very long life. Tenzin frowned at his words, sounding as if he didn't expect them to succeed in finding a way to remove Zai. Now, Naruto, if you don't mind answering a few questions for us. How exactly did you become Zai's host? Tenzin asked, with Korra looking at him, also curious about how he came into contact with Zai, as Naruto looked between the two, before sighing. I was a kid, I grew up in a small village, in the northwestern part of the Earth Kingdom with my mother, who was a waterbender, as well as the resident healer and hunter. It was nice, especially when I eventually showed to be a waterbender as well. But then one day, we were attacked by dark spirits, they just attacked and started killing people, including my mother. I was angry, angrier than I've ever been. I would have died too, but then I heard a voice, it offered me the power to save myself and have my revenge. I didn't bother to think it over, so I immediately accepted the chance to have revenge and live. Said Naruto. It was I, wasn't it? Korra said, with Naruto nodding in confirmation. Yeah, I opened the door and Zai happily walked through, taking me as a host. That's when Carnage was born, we ripped apart the dark spirits and absorbed their power, but also everyone else that was still alive. When I finally regained control, I was surrounded by bodies, then I just ran. I was terrified at what I just did and the fact that Zai was still inside me. So I isolated myself, avoided settlements and people in general, only entering towns when I had no choice, and survived by hunting. But Zai isn't the type to just lie down and keep quiet. Naruto replied. The killings? Tenzin asked. Feedings. Zai sustains and empowers himself by devouring blood, the more he has, the stronger he gets. And the longer he goes without drinking any, the harder it is to control him until he finally breaks free. What you saw at the rally, that was 2 months of keeping him locked up. Naruto revealed, shocking them both. Spirits, how did you survive that long on your own? Asked Korra, shocked at what she was hearing. I'm able to satisfy him for some time with animal blood, but it's not the same. He says that human blood tastes better, especially when they're terrified. It keeps him down for a while, but he always comes back. So, my advice, when this tag starts failing, and it will, make sure you're far, far away. Because he'll eventually come out and he'll be hungry and angry. Naruto said, shivering slightly when he thought about the times I got angry. I didn't torture you, did he? Tenzin asked, frowning, with Korra looking at Naruto, hoping that wasn't the case, only for him to nod. Nothing too bad, since he wants to make sure I'm in top condition when he's in control. At most, he slows my blood to a near crawl, slowing my heartbeat down to the point one would think I was dead," replied Naruto while looking at his pale skin, a result of Zayas' punishments. "Okay, well what about the fact you can firebend and earthbend? How can you do that?" Korra asked, wanting to move on from the dark topic while wanting to finally get an answer of how he can bend 3 elements. "It's one of the abilities I get as Zayas' vessel. I gain the abilities of anyone whose blood I drain, which in turn grants me the ability to earthbend and firebend. With my bending also growing stronger, the more benders I drain," Naruto answered, surprising the two, while Korra had a feeling of dread inside her. "If you hadn't interfered, Carnage would have drained my blood," stated Korra, with Naruto nodding in confirmation, while Tenzin's eyes widened in horror at the realization of what would have happened. While Korra saw how dangerous Carnage was alone, she could just imagine how dangerous he'd be when empowered by the Avatar state and having all 4 elements at his control. She could only imagine him tearing his way through everyone and everything until the entire world was in ruins. All while he grows stronger and stronger with the more blood he devours. It definitely didn't paint a pretty picture, with Korra being terrified of such a thing happening. "Like I said, make sure you're far away when Carnage comes back," Naruto said, knowing if Carnage absorbed the Avatar's blood, then no one would be safe. "Any other questions?" Naruto asked while looking between the two, with them both shaking their heads. "No, not at the moment," answered Tenzin. "And here's a radio you can listen to while you rest," Korra said while motioning to the radio on the dresser before turning it on. Tensions continued to rise in the wake of the revelation with Aman being outed as a bloodbender. Bending gangs grow increasingly bold. Protesters outside of City Hall. Equalist remnants claiming spirits are demons. Bending seen as evil. "You know what, who listens to the radio anymore?" Korra said sheepishly while turning the radio off after seeing it was only talking about Aman, bending gangs, and remnants of the Equalists, along with basically how bad things were getting in the city right now after that disaster of a rally. With Korra unable to resist the urge to facepalm and groan, wondering how a simple mission to save a friend could turn out so badly. "Sorry. If I hadn't been at the rally, none of this would be happening," said Naruto, knowing he's partly responsible for what's happening, given if he hadn't come to Republic City, then Carnage wouldn't have come out and exposed Aman as a bloodbender. "It doesn't matter. Even if you hadn't been at the rally, then Aman would still be in power and all benders would be in danger with his ability to take away a person's bending. Perhaps, at least this way, we can contain the oncoming chaos in Republic City rather than it being spread to the rest of the world," said Tenzin. "So, we were basically damned if we do and damned if we don't," Korra deadpanned, seeing that no matter what, they would have been screwed, with the only good thing being that benders were no longer in danger of having their bending taken unless Carnage kept doing what he did to Aman. Though the Avatar figured that Carnage cared more about killing than taking away bending. Now they could only hope that Tenzin was right and that they could contain the oncoming chaos before it grows into something worse. Korra laid in her bed, sleeping peacefully, only to shoot up awake and alarmed when a shadowy figure ran past the door, with the Avatar hearing their footsteps. Only to be shocked when an Equalist Kai blocker suddenly burst through her window, while 2 broke through the door. Jumping out of bed, Korra spun in the air and kicked her leg down, releasing an arc of flame at the Equalists, forcing them back. Before she unleashed another arc of flames, sending them further back, with the Kai blockers dodging the fire before rushing towards the Avatar. With Korra shooting out 2 jets of flames to keep them away from her, just as one jumped off the table and tried getting her with a spin kick. Only for Korra to block it with her arm before shooting more fire at them. But while she was focused on the first 2, the Avatar didn't see the third one roll into a space just out of her sight before striking her repeatedly, with Korra suddenly losing her ability to bend and stand. As she shouted and fell to her knees helpless, only to be horrified when she looked up and saw Aman as he was before Carnage took his bending. "After I take your bending away, you will be nothing," Aman said before reaching his hand to Korra's face, with the girl being terrified at what was about to happen. Only for things to get even worse when a tendril of blood impaled Aman through the chest before multiple tendrils stretched out stabbing the Kai blockers as well. With Korra's horror growing as she watched the blood be absorbed from their bodies before they were tossed aside. Then she heard laughter as Carnage jumped into the room and landed right on top of her, pinning the Avatar to the ground. "All your power will now be mine," Carnage said with a demented grin before opening his mouth wide open and descended towards Korra. Korra shot up screaming in her bed, panting and sweating as she looked at herself for any injuries before she felt something familiar touch her hand. Looking, Korra gave a small thankful smile at seeing Naga licking her hand before the polar bear dog rested her head on Korra's lap. It's alright, Naga. I just had a bad dream," said Korra, petting her companion before hugging her, thankful for Naga's presence. Looking out her window, Korra found her attention drawn to the full moon before she caught sight of someone sitting outside. Is that, Korra thought, before narrowing her eyes at the figure and realizing it was Naruto, surprised to see him up and out of his room. Given how the whiskered blonde hadn't been out of his room after waking up 2 days ago, she didn't expect to see him out this soon. Curious to see what he's doing and doubting she'll be able to fall asleep again, Korra got up and exited her room. Leaving the dormitory, Korra walked up to see Naruto sitting on a cliff with one leg hanging off and the other pulled up to his chest. Well, his head was tilted up, looking at the moon. Is there something I can help you with, Korra? Naruto said without looking, surprising the avatar that he knew it was her. Oh no, I just saw you out here and wanted to see how you were doing. Is it alright if I join you? Asked Korra, with Naruto shrugging and motioning her forward, with the girl going over and sitting beside him. So nice night, huh? Korra stated awkwardly, not sure how else to start a conversation, given her past attempts to speak with Naruto hadn't gone very well or were met with silence. I guess. Replied Naruto as his gaze never once left the full moon, with Korra's own eyes soon looking up at it as well, as the two fell silent for a few moments. It's funny, I can't even remember the last time I saw the full moon with my own eyes. Naruto said softly, with the avatar looking at him in surprise. What do you mean? Korra asked, with Naruto raising a hand to his chest. Sai always takes control on nights like these when the full moon is out. Since it's when his power is at its strongest, like all bloodbenders. Answered Naruto. He takes control every night of the full moon. Said Korra, with the blonde nodding. Yeah. Mostly he just shouts at Tui and La, insulting them, cursing them, all the ways he'd kill them and devour their physical bodies. Naruto said, with Korra stiffening at that, realizing it was a very real possibility that Sai, or Carnage, could in fact kill Tui and La. All he'd have to do is travel to the North Pole, kill anyone that gets in his way, and he'd be able to kill both spirits, since they're nothing but helpless koi fish. But Naruto finally looking at her, upon feeling her unease. If he wanted to, he would have killed them by now. Mostly, he just enjoys taunting them with the knowledge he could kill them, but he chooses not to. Seeing it as his own personal revenge, that he's free to kill people and corrupt waterbenders, all while they can't do anything to stop him. Naruto said, relieving the avatar slightly. He can really hold a grudge, can't he? Muttered Korra, surprised at the extent Zai would go to spite his brother and sister-in-law. Actually, Zai doesn't care that they cursed him and turned him into a dark spirit. In fact, he's expressed his gratitude that he's no longer bound by morals, that he could fully embrace his true nature. No, he just despises them, all spirits really. Dark spirits or light spirits, they're all the same to him, pests to be wiped out. Most of them, anyway. Naruto added, as Korra looked at him with wide eyes. How are you still sane? Korra asked, wondering how anyone could still be sane after everything he's seen and experienced under Zai's control. I'm just desensitized, the killing, the blood, the constant voice in my head telling me to just tear open someone's throat and drain them dry. Said Naruto, shrugging, while Korra looked at him sadly as she wondered just how much he's been through. No one should have to be like that. Korra said, wishing there was something she could do to help him, but she knew absolutely nothing about spirits and was about as spiritually connected as a rock. It is what it is, I've accepted that Zai will likely always be part of my life and it's better me than someone else. Someone who'd happily let him run wild to unleash death and destruction. Stated Naruto, knowing how bad it'd be if Zai had gotten a host that was more willingly to kill people. Enough depressing topics. What about you? Naruto asked, with looking at Korra, who tilted her head in confusion. What about me? Asked Korra, as the corners of Naruto's mouth twitching up. I mean, what are you like? Everyone looks at you and see the avatar, but what about Korra the person? Naruto said, surprising Korra, since it was the first time anyone in Republic City has asked about her and not have it be related to her position as the avatar. Oh well, that isn't really much to tell. I was born in the Southern Water Tribe and for the first 4 years, I was just a normal little girl. Then I learned that I wasn't just a waterbender, but also a firebender and earthbender. You couldn't imagine how excited I was to learn that I was the avatar. And you should have seen the faces of the White Lotus sentries that had shown up for proof. And what I said was, I'm the avatar, you gotta deal with it. Korra said, while laughing as she remembered the looks on their faces when she launched a piece of stone past them, along with bending fire and water, while Naruto smirked. I can imagine it'd be a shock. Stated Naruto. And then I began my training to master the elements, starting out with waterbending, obviously. I was trained by Master Katara, learning everything she had to teach me both about fighting and healing. It was actually during my training that I met my best friend Naga. Said Korra, while smiling at the memories. The polar bear dog. Naruto said, having seen it a few times, with Korra nodding. Yeah. It had been during one of my lessons with Katara when a snowstorm started and we heard a pack of polar bear dogs howling in the winds. I had been told to stay inside, but I never was one to do what I'm told, so I snuck out at night. Only to end up getting lost. That's when I met Naga, who had gotten separated from her pack. I built a makeshift igloo around us and tried making a fire, but I wasn't the best firebender back then. Since Katara wanted me to master waterbending before I started on the other elements. It was around then I started learning that being the avatar wasn't all fun and games like I thought it would be. But Naga was there to cheer me up and I was happy that I finally had a friend I could talk to. The next morning, my dad found us and brought us home and I was allowed to keep Naga. We've been together ever since. Said Korra, smiling, since she was always glad to have met Naga. What happened next? Naruto asked, with the avatar's smile fading as she sighed and frowned. It wasn't long until, for some reason, I was secluded in the White Lotus compound within the Southern Water Tribe. I never really liked it there since I was hardly ever allowed outside and always had to train in mastering my bending. It wasn't until I learned the Tenzin wouldn't be moving to the South Pole to teach me airbending that I finally left and came here. Both to learn airbending and finally make a choice of what I was going to do rather than let someone else make it for me. Said Korra. If there's one thing I've learned, Korra, it's to never let someone try and make decisions for you. The only person that knows what's best for you is you, don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. If you think you're making the right choice, then to do it. But also be aware of the consequences of the choices you make. Said Naruto, with Korra looking at him and saw the sullen look on his face, realizing he was also talking about his own choices. Like when he gave himself to Zai. But she also nodded in agreement at his words, glad someone respected her desire to make her own decisions. The two then fell into silence again as they looked out over the bay. Before Korra decided to ask him something that she's been wanting to ask ever since he woke up. Hey Naruto, could I ask you something personal? Korra asked, with Naruto looking at her, while feeling a little wary of what she wanted to ask. What? Asked Naruto. What's it like being a bloodbender? Korra said, having only heard a little of it from Katara, mostly about how it was a dark art that only brought pain. But she couldn't deny her curiosity about wanting to hear what it was like from Naruto. Given how he's been bonded to the creator of bloodbending most of his life. She figured he, more than anyone, would know the most about the art. Oh, muttered Naruto, not expecting that question. It's fine if you don't want to talk about, Korra said quickly, thinking she might have overstepped her boundaries. No, it's fine, I just wasn't expecting that. Naruto said, before thinking over what to say. Bloodbending it's a dark art, as there's no way to justify controlling another person in such a way, even more so with the way Aman was using it to take people's bending. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have other uses. Said Naruto. Like what? Korra asked, with Naruto tapping one of his ears in response. I can hear a person's or animal's heartbeat, the blood being pumped through their bodies. I can hear the heartbeat of every living thing on this island, it's how I knew you were approaching earlier. Said Naruto, surprising Korra as she unconsciously placed a hand over her heart. You could tell it was me just from my heartbeat? Korra asked, amazed at such an ability, since it reminded her of the seismic sensing ability that was created and used by Toph Bifong. Yeah, you have a very unique heartbeat. Naruto said, knowing how that sounded. Do you listen to my heartbeat often? Questioned Korra, with Naruto nodding slowly. Yeah. It's calming, I guess. Normally I try to block out the sounds of people's heartbeats, since it's harder to keep carnage suppressed with the more heartbeats I hear, the more blood it can drain. But with you I just feel a sense of peace when I hear it. Said Naruto, while looking anywhere but at Korra, who looked at him with wide eyes. Oh, Korra said, not sure what else to say. It's creepy, isn't it? Naruto stated, believing she'd be freaked out at him listening to her heartbeat. No. I mean maybe, but I'm glad that I'm able to help you in some way. If it helps you, then I have no problem with you listening. Said Korra, while smiling at Naruto, glad that she was able to help him in some way, even if it was indirectly. Naruto looked at Korra in surprise, not sure what to think, but was glad that she wasn't freaked out before he slowly returned the smile. Though the two looked down and were surprised when they saw Korra's hand on top of Naruto's, before they quickly retracted them. So what else can bloodbending do? Korra asked, while looking away with a light blush on her face. Well, I'm also able to tell if someone is lying, just by listening to their heartbeat. I'm also able to sense anomalies in a person's blood, like if they have an illness, or have poison or venom in them. And if it's the latter, you'd be able to isolate the poison or venom to a specific area and have it extracted. And probably one of the most useful abilities is that if you're strong enough, you can even resist another person's bloodbending grip. Said Naruto, with Korra once again looking at him in amazement at everything he could do with bloodbending. But the avatar seeing that while bloodbending was a dark art, it still had its own uses. with Korra knowing that after everything she learned about Zai bloodbending wasn't something she could ignore, especially on the chance she ever encountered other bloodbenders. "Naruto, would you be able to?" Korra said, only to be cut off. "No," said Naruto, already knowing what she was about to ask, and he sure as hell wasn't going to do that. "You didn't even let me finish," said Korra, annoyed at the interruption. "I already know what you were going to say. You want me to teach you bloodbending, and my answer is no," Naruto said. "But what about everything you just said? Everything it can do, and how useful it'd be if I can do all that?" Korra argued, knowing while she'd never use bloodbending on another person, she can't deny how useful it'd be to learn it. "I'm not teaching you bloodbending, Korra. Drop it," said Naruto while looking at her warningly, but Korra wasn't one to back down. "Oh, but you're free to use it however you want. I'm the Avatar, I'm supposed to master all the elements. And last I checked, bloodbending is part of waterbending, so I do have to learn it," Korra retorted, standing up and glaring at him, with Naruto standing up and returning the glare. "I don't have a choice in using it or not," said Naruto. "But you have a choice now. Either you can teach me, or I learn it on my own," Korra said, knowing if Naruto didn't teach her, she'll find some other way to learn bloodbending. She didn't know how, only that she'd do it without having to hurt anyone or anything. All while Naruto looked at her in disbelief that she'd go that far just to make him teach her bloodbending. Knowing if he didn't and she still tried, someone would get hurt. "You really don't get it, do you? If you learn bloodbending, whether you use it or not, you will become a child of blood. For the rest of your life, you'll be weak to Zai's influence. He will always have a hold on you and be there at any moment of weakness. If you give even an inch, he will not stop until you are under his complete control. Is that really worth the risk, Korra?" Naruto demanded, with Korra's determination wavering slightly at this, only for it to solidify a moment later. "Yes. Now, are you going to teach me or not?" Korra said, refusing to give up, no matter what the risks are, with Naruto looking at her for a moment. At least if he taught her, there would be less of a risk of her hurting herself or someone else. Along with there being a better chance of it being kept a secret, so no one would find. "Fine. But we do it my way, you'll do what I say, when I say it. You won't ask questions, you won't hesitate, and you will not tell anyone what we're doing. Not Tenzin, not your parents, not your friends, no one finds out. Understood?" Naruto said, with Korra nodding, knowing how bad it'd be if other people found out. "Yes, and I'm sorry for basically forcing you to teach me. But thank you for agreeing," said Korra, feeling a little guilty at making Naruto agree to teach her, but she knew how important it'd be to learn bloodbending, while Naruto sighed and nodded. "It's fine. But you should go get some sleep, you'll have a lot of training in the morning," said Naruto, with Korra nodding, since she now had not only airbending training, but bloodbending training as well. But the girl turned to return to her room, feeling like she could actually get some sleep after talking with Naruto. Before she stopped and looked back at the blonde. "Hey Naruto, I just have one more question," said Korra, since something else has been bugging her, with Naruto looking at her curiously. "It's about Zai. Whenever he takes control, why does he refer to the both of you as Carnage? Why doesn't he use his actual name?" Korra asked, having been confused as to why Zai chose to use the name Carnage rather than his actual name. It's funny. That was actually one of the first questions I asked him," said Naruto. "What was his answer?" asked Korra. "Spirits can be forgotten, spirits can be killed. But a monster is never forgotten, a monster is immortal. A monster will always haunt the darkest corners of humanity's minds. We will be the monster they never forget, we are now and forevermore, Carnage," Naruto said, repeating the exact words Zai had told him, while Korra gulped at hearing. "Well, I'm sure he succeeded there," muttered Korra, with Naruto nodding in agreement. Korra then returned to her room, while Naruto sat back down and looked over the bay. Though unknown to the two, Tenzin had been eavesdropping on their conversation. The airbending master having had trouble sleeping and decided to go for a walk around the island, only to stumble onto Naruto and Korra talking. While he didn't hear everything that was said, Tenzin did hear their argument over teaching Korra bloodbending. He had been tempted to jump in and put a stop to it right then and there. But the more he thought about it, along with what other abilities one could gain from bloodbending, Tenzin thought that perhaps it would be a good thing for Korra to learn bloodbending should she ever encounter other bloodbenders. But the airbending master also make a note to help Korra more with her spiritual training and meditation to ensure she wouldn't be susceptible to Zai's influence. Along with silently agreeing to not tell anyone about Naruto training Korra, especially his mother. Knowing how she'd react to the knowledge of Korra learning bloodbending, even more so that she was being trained by Zai's own host. Knowing there wasn't anything else to do, Tenzin returned to his and Pima's room while mentally working out the details and changes to Korra's schedule to fit with her new training. Next morning. The next morning found Naruto going to the dining room for breakfast with Tenzin, his family, and Korra. since he didn't really have the option to stay locked in his room anymore. Given how he would now be training Korra, the blonde figured he might as well start interacting with the other residents of the island. When he arrived, Naruto saw that Korra and the airbending family were already present before looking up in surprise at seeing him. "Naruto, I'm surprised to see you," Tenzin stated, not having expected to see Naruto. "I just figured I couldn't stay locked up in my room all day. I can leave if I'm disturbing you," said Naruto. "No, please join us. I'm Pima, Tenzin's wife, and these are Jinora, Ikki, and Milo," Pima said, while offering Naruto a kind smile, despite what Tenzin told her and the children about him. Given how he wanted his family to at least be aware of the danger that Naruto being here posed. Since even with the talisman, the airbender wanted to make sure his family was safe and careful. And to make sure that Ikki and Milo didn't do anything that could draw his ire in the chance that he returns. He also didn't tell them the more gruesome details, just that Naruto was the host of a very dangerous spirit and that they shouldn't do anything that might provoke it. Nodding, Naruto sat down beside Korra, while seeing the airbending children all looked at him with varying expressions of awe, amazement, and intrigue. Not something Naruto was used to seeing on people's faces, so he wasn't sure how to respond to them. Naruto, would it be alright if I ask you something?" Jinora asked, unable to deny her curiosity and interest to learn more about what it was like being the host of a spirit. Looking at the girl, Naruto looked at Tenzin and Pima to see if they'd be alright with it. Upon seeing the two nod, Naruto looked at Jinora and nodded. "What's it like, being the host of a spirit?" asked Jinora, with Naruto frowning in thought, wondering how he could respond without scarring them. "It's definitely a strange experience, sharing my body with another being. I can sense and feel the spirit within me, while also being able to communicate with it. The more time passed, the more linked, I guess you could say, we became. I also became more spiritually connected, even being able to enter the spirit world if I want to," Naruto answered, much to the surprise of Jinora, Korra, and Tenzin. "You can enter the spirit world?" asked Tenzin, amazed to hear that he could enter the spirit world, with Naruto nodding. "Yes, I can enter it from anywhere if I want to. I can even physically enter the spirit world in areas that are spiritually connected with it," Naruto revealed, much to their amazement. "Would I be able to do that?" asked Korra, wondering if she'd be able to physically enter the spirit world in such locations, due to her being the avatar and all. "Maybe," Naruto replied, while shrugging. "What's it like in the spirit world?" Jinora asked, eager to hear this. "It's hard to describe, only that it's a good place to be to get away from your worries and just exist," said Naruto, having enjoyed the few trips he made to the spirit world, since they were the few moments he was able to just forget about everything else. "It sounds wonderful," Jinora said, while smiling as she hoped to one day travel to the spirit world. With that, the airbending family and Korra continued eating breakfast, with Naruto getting a plate as well, but didn't eat much. Ever since he became Zaya's host, he didn't really need to eat normal food anymore, while being able to survive on blood alone. While he could still eat, it wasn't really a necessity. With it being something that set Naruto further apart from other people, something Zaya always enjoyed reminding him of. Once they finished, Tenzin had left to go to a council meeting, while having Naruto join him on the walk to the pier. "You needed me for something?" Naruto asked as they walked outside. "I just wanted to inform you that I was able to make an arrangement with the Republic City Blood Bank. They're willing to send over a steady supply of blood in order to keep you under control," Tenzin said, having been able to come up with a believable lie as to why he needed a supply of blood sent over, while Naruto looked at him in surprise that he did that. "Thanks," said Naruto after a few moments, knowing that would at least make it so I wasn't starving and hungry when he came out again. Though that didn't mean he wouldn't be incredibly pissed off when he did come out. "It's the least I can do. Hopefully, it will be enough to keep Zai sated and ensure that the seal will last as long as possible." "Oh no," Tenzin said when they reached the pier and saw Chief Lin Bifeng standing there. "I take it she knows," stated Naruto, with Tenzin nodding in resignation, having hoped to put off this meeting for as long as possible. "Yes, I had to tell her. Otherwise she would have called for a widespread manhunt after the scene from the rally," Tenzin replied as the two reached the dock. "Lin, you look as lovely as ever. What can I do for you?" asked Tenzin, with Lin narrowing her eyes at her ex, before turning to Naruto and fixing a wary, suspicious glare on him. "We both know why I'm here, Tenzin. To make sure there isn't a lunatic killer running loose in Republic City," Lin said bluntly, while not wasting time with any pleasantries. "Well, aren't you just a ball of sunshine?" Naruto deadpanned, with Lin narrowing her eyes at the teen. "I don't care what I am. What I do care about is making sure this city and its citizens are safe from any and all threats. What you did a few days ago, whether you were in control or not, that qualifies as a threat. So let me make this perfectly clear, if you or that thing inside you do anything to endanger my city, my officers, I won't hesitate to put you down. Lin said, with Naruto not being the least bit fazed by the threat since he knew they couldn't do anything to him, let alone actually have a chance of killing him. Invest in stronger armor, Carnage rips through metal like paper. Or get a different material since he can simply bend the metal and crush you in it. Said Naruto, knowing that's the main reason they wouldn't stand a chance, since Carnage would just metalbend their cables right back at them, or even turn their armor into Iron Maidens around them. Lin narrowed her eyes, before scoffing as she returned to the boat, but did mentally note down his words. With Tenzin sighing, while giving Naruto an apologetic look, which he waved off. Before going down to the boat as well, to head for City Hall. Later. After Korra had finished her airbending exercises for the day, she had gone to meet Naruto in the forest on the island, somewhere nice and secluded, to start her bloodbending training. And the avatar couldn't deny, she actually felt a little excited to be learning such a thing. So, what are we going to be starting on first? Korra asked as she sat across from Naruto, wondering where they'll start. Normally, we'd be starting on a full moon, when waterbenders are at their strongest. But since the last full moon was last night, I don't think it'd be a good idea to wait an entire month to begin teaching you bloodbending. So instead, we'll focus on something simple, but still useful, that doesn't require the full moon. Listening for a person's heartbeat. Said Naruto, with Korra nodding, as she was eager to learn this, while being glad that it was something simple and not dangerous. I'm guessing that's why we're out here, alone. Korra said, with Naruto nodding at her words. Correct. It's easier to learn when you only focus on 1 or 2 heartbeats at a time, along with avoiding the chance of being overloaded by hearing too many at once. Now, close your eyes. Instructed Naruto, with Korra doing so, while Naruto followed not long after. Now focus. Block out the sounds around you, the wind, the ocean, the leaves, the animals, even your breathing. Block it all out and listen for the beat. Naruto said, with Korra giving a small nod as she began focusing, while working to block out the noise around her. It took a few moments, but soon every sound around her began fading away until Korra couldn't even hear her own breathing. With the only thing left was the darkness from her closed eyes. For a few moments, Korra didn't hear anything and began thinking that something was wrong until she finally heard it. Ba-dump. 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 Korra's eyes flew open with a gasp while seeing Naruto looking at her with a small smile. You heard it. Naruto stated, with the girl nodding in amazement and excitement. I did. I actually heard a heartbeat. Said Korra, while smiling at how she managed to actually hear it and so quickly at that. You did great, Korra, I'm actually surprised that you managed to get it down that quickly. But of course, that was the easy part. Now, we'll be working on you being able to hear it without focusing, before moving on to hearing it above other sounds. Once you're able to do all that, we'll start building you up to being able to listen to multiple heartbeats, then being able to tell what a person is feeling by the way their heart beats. Said Naruto, with Korra nodding, eager to continue on as they closed their eyes again, knowing that the rest of her training likely won't be as easy. Time skipped 2 days. 2 days have passed since Korra began her bloodbending training under Naruto, and so far, she's made good progress in listening to people's heartbeats. But not as much as she would have liked. She's managed to successfully hear a heartbeat above the sound of other noises. But unfortunately, that was about as much progress as she's made since she's been unable to begin learning to hear multiple heartbeats at once. Korra had been a little disappointed that she wasn't picking it up as quickly as when she first tried. Having expected it to be easy since she's the avatar and originally a waterbender. With Naruto reminding her that while bloodbending originates from waterbending, it's still unlike any other form of bending. Something that Korra accepted and knew it'll take much longer for her to get it down. Especially since Naruto had the advantage in being Aya's host. But that also being another problem, since they had to take things slow and carefully to make sure Ai didn't gain too much influence over her too quickly. Though not all things were good, with Councilman Terlock having suddenly shown up at dinner and asked Korra to join his task force. One he's assembling to hunt down the remaining Equalists and the monster that had attacked the rally. With the avatar being thankful that Naruto wasn't there to hear that, not liking how he was seen as a monster and killer when he wasn't in control of himself. Korra had rejected his offer since she wouldn't admit it, but she was still terrified of Carnage. Both at the thought of him killing her and taking her power for himself, along with the fact that he could also take away her bending, like he did to Aman. The latter of whom Korra was also still scared of. As even with him no longer being a threat, with his bending gone and exposure as a fraud, she was still scared of what he could have done had Carnage not shown up. Currently, Naruto and Korra were sitting outside the dormitories with Korra rubbing Naga's belly. Though she soon heard 2 sets of footsteps approaching and looked to see Bolin, Mako, and Pabu. Hello, fellow teammate. Bolin greeted. Hey Korra. Mako said with a wave before glancing at Naruto curiously. Hey Bolin, Mako. Korra replied. Missed you at practice this week. Stated Bolin since they hadn't seen Korra at practice since the rally. Yeah, sorry about that. Said Korra, feeling bad about how she hasn't been showing up for practice recently due to her having a lot on her mind lately. It's fine. It probably doesn't even matter since we don't have the money to add to the tournament pot. Said Mako, disappointed that they won't be participating in the tournament. Anyways, the reason I came by was to give you this. Ta-da. Bolin said, while pulling out a cupcake and a rose, surprising Korra at the gift before she glanced at Naruto when she felt his heartbeat pick up slightly and saw a brief flash of annoyance on his face. Wow, thanks. What's this for? Asked Korra, not sure what the gift was for. Oh, I can't remember now. Oh yeah, now I remember. You saved me from Aman. Not to mention that crazy Carnage guy. Answered Bolin, like it was obvious. Hey, I was there too. Where's my cupcake? Mako asked while frowning. There was only one cupcake. Bolin deadpanned, with Korra giggling before holding the cupcake out for Mako. Here, tough guy. Said Korra, only for Mako to wave it off since he was just messing with his brother. And that? It was no big deal. Korra said to Bolin with a shrug. No big deal, are you serious? I was totally freaking out when he was coming at me with his creepy mask all, I will take away your bending forever. And then Carnage showing up and going all blood. More blood. I mean that is scary stuff, I still can't sleep well. Bolin said, while shivering since he still had nightmares about what happened. So, who's this? Asked Mako, wanting to steer the conversation away from the current topic and he was curious of who Naruto was. Oh right. Guys, this is Naruto, a friend staying on the island. Naruto, these are my teammates on the fire ferrets and friends, Mako and Bolin. He was at the rally but was able to get away. Korra said, knowing it wasn't her place to tell them who Naruto really is and wasn't sure how they would react. Oh. Sorry if Bolin said, now feeling awkward at bringing up the rally to someone else who had been there. It's fine, I'm just glad to have made it out alive. Said Naruto. You were at the rally? Mako asked while narrowing his eyes, given it had originally been an equalist rally. Yes. And no, I'm not an equalist, nor do I support them. I'm not even a non-bender, I'm a waterbender. I only went to see if Aman actually wished to create equality between benders and non-benders, with the only thing that I saw being a madman and a liar. Said Naruto, while bending some water to prove his point, making Mako relax and nod in agreement about Aman. Suddenly, everyone's attention turned to the council page showing up with a large basket of flowers and other gifts. Making Korra groan at the sight since it wasn't the first gift that Terlock sent her to try and make her change her mind. Delivery for Avatar Korra. Terlock sends his compliments and urges you to reconsider his offer. Said the page. Tell him, I haven't changed my mind. Korra replied, with the page bowing before walking off. Terlock? Mako asked. Who's this Terlock guy? Is he bothering you? Cause I could have a word with him. Said Bolin while punching his fist into his hand. No, it's not like that. He's just some old guy who works with Tenzin on the council. Korra said while amused at the idea of Bolin beating up Terlock. Oh, good. Good, that sounds better. I like that better. Said Bolin. Well, I gotta get going since I'm meeting someone soon. See ya. Mako said before turning and leaving while giving them a wave. Having come to check up on Korra but still needed to meet up with Asami to go meet her father. Later City Hall. The rest of the day, Korra had to deal with Terlock sending her more and more gifts, each more extravagant than the last, one of which even being a brand new Satomobile. With Korra only growing more and more annoyed with each gift and that Terlock wouldn't take no for an answer. With his most recent gift being the most extravagant, with it being a gala that he was throwing in her honor, which actually intrigued Korra. With the Avatar agreeing to go, if only out of curiosity to see it for herself and a chance to get some time off the island. Though she had also asked Naruto to go with her, not wanting him to be left alone on the island while they were gone. Naruto was reluctant to go but was more annoyed that he had to dress up in a suit for it. I never thought I'd actually prefer my other suit. Naruto said as they entered City Hall. Come on, it's just one night. Besides, I think you look good. Said Korra as she smiled at Naruto while looking him up and down, seeing that he did look rather handsome in the gala clothes. Thanks, you look really pretty. Naruto muttered, with Korra's smile widening at his compliment. Though her attention turned to the other guests when they started clapping at her entrance. I can't believe this is all for me. Said Korra, not believing this was all for her. Don't be fooled, Korra, this isn't just some party to celebrate. Naruto said, with Tenzin nodding in agreement. Naruto's right. I'm not sure what Terlock's plotting but keep your guard up. It's not like him to throw a party just for the fun of it," said Tenzin, knowing this was all another one of Terloc's schemes, he just wasn't sure how it all worked. "I'm so glad you could make it, Avatar Korra." "And guest." Terlock said, smiling as he walked up to them before looking at Naruto and wondered who he was. "This is my friend, Naruto, I invited him to come along with us." "I hope that's not a problem," said Korra. "Certainly not, any friend of the Avatars is more than welcome. But if you'd excuse us, the city awaits its hero," Terlock said, wanting to get Korra away from Tenzin. Korra walking off with Terlock, though grabbed Naruto's hand to pull him along, with him soon walking up to an older-looking gentleman. "Korra, it's my pleasure to introduce Republic City's most famous industrialist, Hiroshi Sato." Terlock introduced the man. "Nice to meet you," replied Korra as Hiroshi bowed. "We're all expecting great things from you," Hiroshi said, making Korra look away while Naruto narrowed his eyes slightly at the man. "Right, greatness," muttered Korra. "Hey, Korra, Naruto," said Mako while walking up to them with Asami and Bolin. "This is my daughter, Asami," Hiroshi said as Asami smiled at Korra. "It's lovely to meet you. Mako's told me so much about you," said Asami. "Really? Because he hasn't mentioned you at all. How did you two meet?" Korra asked, confused as to when Mako could have met Asami, only to be surprised when Bolin reappeared beside her. "Asami crashed into him on her moped," answered Bolin. "What? Are you okay?" asked Korra, worried about her teammate. "I'm fine. More than fine. Mr. Sato agreed to sponsor our team, we're back in the tournament," Mako said, not believing how they could now participate in the tournament. Isn't that great?" said Bolin, just as excited. "Yeah, terrific," Korra said, not sharing their excitement since that's now another thing on her increasingly filled up plate. Though she smiled at Naruto when he gave her hand a gentle squeeze, glad he was here. Only for her smile to vanish when she saw the police chief and Terlock wave her over. "Chief Bifrong, I believe you and Avatar Korra have already met," Terlock said, with Lin glaring at Korra and Naruto. "Just because the city's throwing you this big tutu, don't think you're something special. You've done absolutely nothing to deserve this," Lin said harshly as Korra gladly glared back at her. "And just because her name's on it doesn't mean Korra planned it. You wanna be angry at someone, be angry at the ponytail man," said Naruto while pointing his thumb at Terlock, whose eye twitched at the nickname. Lin glared at him for a moment before walking away while Naruto looked at Korra and saw the saddened expression on her face. "Don't let what she said get to you. Remember, your choices, your decisions, and damn what anyone else says," Naruto whispered in her ear, with Korra nodding in thanks. "I'm really glad you came," replied Korra, feeling grateful that she asked him to come with her, with Naruto nodding in response. After a while, Korra had been pulled away by Terlock, leaving Naruto behind, much to the blonde's annoyance. With him wanting nothing more than to punch the councilman in the face. Though he groaned when he heard a familiar dark chuckle in his mind. "And here I was hoping I was done with you," Naruto thought as Carnage laughed loudly in his mind. "Oh, that is absolutely precious. You really think some fancy piece of paper will keep me down? I might not be able to take control, but I will always be here, Naruto, and nothing you or anyone does will ever change that," Carnage taunted. "Maybe, but it keeps you locked away, like the rabid animal you are," Naruto mentally retorted. "Careful what you say, Naruto. That seal won't last forever, and when it fails, I'm gonna have so much fun with these humans. I'll even get to complete our collection of elements, maybe by using one of those little brats, or even the one still in the woman's stomach. Then I'll move on to the Avatar and show her what bloodbending can really do," growled Carnage, with Naruto clenching his fists in anger but didn't react, knowing that's what he wanted. "What do you want, Carnage?" Naruto thought, knowing he wouldn't contact just to taunt him. "I just thought I'd let you know that Terlock is another of mine. He's a child of blood from a more powerful lineage at that. Just thought I'd warn you since he seems obsessed with your little girlfriend," said Carnage before cutting the connection as Naruto tensed while his eyes widened at this, not even registering how Carnage called Korra his girlfriend. Only that Terlock was a bloodbender and currently with Korra. Looking around, Naruto soon spotted Korra and Terlock coming down some stairs right into a crowd of reporters. "Oh, you son of a bitch," Naruto thought, now seeing what Terlock's game is, and swore to rip his throat out. "Avatar Korra, you witnessed the danger that this Carnage poses to the city, along with the remnants of the Equalists that have escaped custody. How serious a threat do they pose to the innocent citizens of Republic City?" "I think they present a real problem," Korra replied, though sounding unsure. "Then why have you refused to join Terlock's task force? As the Avatar, shouldn't you be going after Carnage and the Equalists?" "Well, why are you backing away from this fight?" "What? No. I've never backed away from anything in my life," retorted Korra, now getting frustrated with the questions. You promised to serve the city, aren't you going back on that promise now? Do you think pro-bending is more important than fighting a serial killer spirit? How do you think Avatar would have handled this? Korra was becoming more confused, annoyed, and intimidated by the constant bombarding questions. Her eyes darted around before they soon found Naruto in the crowd. Seeing him look at her in worry and concern helped ease her nerves and remember his words. My choices, my decisions, and damn what anyone else says. Korra thought. Are you afraid of carnage? One reporter asked, a question that normally would have made Korra snap and give in to join Terlock's task force. But she refused to bend to the whims of Terlock and these hounding reporters. I believe that Carnage and the remaining Equalists do pose a danger to Republic City, but I do not believe that forming a task force to hunt them down is the answer. By hunting down and arresting Equalists and non-benders, we'd only further be dividing the city more than it already is and proving the Equalists right. Now is the time for benders and non-benders to stand together rather than apart. As for Carnage, I can't make any promises, but to hopefully find him and stop him before anyone else can get hurt. That's all. Korra said, before pushing past the reporters, ignoring any further questions, while Terlock scowled at seeing his attempt to trick Korra into joining his task force has failed. Making her way to Naruto, Korra felt him wrap an arm around her before guiding her out of City Hall. Followed by Tenzin and his family, with the airbending master looking at his student in pride. You handle yourself well in there, Korra. I almost expected you to break and give in to Terlock's demands. But I'm proud you held yourself together. Tenzin said, while smiling at Korra, which she tentatively returned. I just remembered some advice I got from a friend. Said Korra, while glancing at Naruto, only to see the frown on his face. Naruto, is something wrong? Korra asked, with Naruto looking at them, before glancing at the children, with Tenzin getting the silent message. Pima, why don't you and the children go wait for us, we'll be along shortly. Tenzin said, with Pima nodding, figuring whatever they needed to talk about wasn't safe for children to hear. Terlock's a bloodbender. Revealed Naruto, once Pima and the children were out of earshot, as Korra and Tenzin looked at him with wide eyes, shocked at what he just said. Terlock, a bloodbender, are you sure? Tenzin asked urgently, since this was a very serious problem if Terlock was a bloodbender and none of them realized it. Yes, Carnage spoke to me, he can sense children of blood and Terlock's one of them. He also said that he comes from a powerful lineage as well. Replied Naruto, further shocking the Avatar and Airbender. All of them knowing just how much more complicated things have become with this knowledge. 2 weeks have passed since the gala, and Terlock's failed attempt to manipulate Korra into joining his task force, along with Naruto revealing the fact that Terlock is a bloodbender. With Tenzin having informed Lin of this the next day, but told her it'd be best not to make a move against Terlock until they had actual proof of him being a bloodbender. Something the police chief didn't like, not wanting another threat running around Republic City. Even more so, with Terlock's task force going around, arresting the remnants of the Equalists or anyone suspected of supporting them. But Lin also understood the need for secrecy, given the fragile state that the city is in, at the moment. With not only the Equalists' remnants and the factions that were born from them, still running around. But the amount people that are fearful of Carnage, as well. Though she did assign some trusted officers to follow Terlock covertly and without his knowledge. But if they were discovered, then they had the cover story of acting as protection for the councilman against any Equalists that might try attacking him. Though there was another problem after the gala, with the city becoming divided on Korra's decision to not join the task force. With some supporting her decision to not drive a bigger wedge between benders and non-benders. And those that didn't support it, believing that the Avatar wasn't doing anything to help them. Well, Korra began realizing and accepting that not everyone would be happy with the choices she makes, but refused to let anyone change her mind. She's the Avatar, and she'll do what she believes is the right choice, no matter what anyone else thinks. Currently, Naruto and Korra were outside on Air Temple Island, continuing the latter's bloodbending training. With Korra having made good progress in listening to multiple heartbeats at once, without being overwhelmed by them. Unfortunately, she's still having trouble with being able to tell what a person is feeling, or if they're lying, from the way their heart beats. You're getting frustrated. Naruto stated, without opening his eyes, while the Avatar opened hers and gave him an annoyed look. Of course I'm getting frustrated. Seriously, how hard can this be? I thought it'd be easy to be able to tell if a person is lying. Said Korra, having thought it'd be easy to tell if a person is lying from their heartbeat. There are different ways a person's heart can react to certain situations that'd make it seem like they're lying. An example could be when someone is being interrogated. They could be completely innocent of any crimes but would still be nervous at being questioned in such a way. Or someone like Milo, who's always bouncing around. Their heartbeat would always be beating rapidly from all the movements. And then there are people who can remain completely calm under stress and their heartbeat wouldn't even so much as flutter. It's not just about listening to their heartbeat. You also need to observe the person themselves and search for signs or reactions that may give off. Along with being capable of catching them off guard as well. Naruto explained, with Korra calming down and listening to his words while nodding slowly in understanding. That makes sense, I guess. Hey, how'd you get so good at this anyway, if you usually avoid being around people? Asked Korra, wondering how Naruto got so good at listening to heartbeats if he isolated himself. Carnage likes to play with his food. And I can still hear what's happening while he's in control. Naruto said tersely, with the avatar gulping at that, since she had a feeling that she didn't want to know how Zai plays with his food, but she could guess. The full moon is in a couple days. Are you ready? Asked Naruto, pulling Korra from her thoughts, while reminding her that the full moon would be coming soon. And with it, her first actual bloodbending lesson. Yeah, as ready as I can be. Korra replied, willing to admit that the upcoming full moon was part of her frustration. While she knew it was her choice to learn bloodbending, it still made Korra nervous that soon she'd have the power to control another living being in such a way. Though she was relieved to learn that Naruto wasn't going to have her bloodbend anything alive. Instead, they would be using special mannequins filled with some of the blood from the shipments that Tenzin's been getting to keep Carnage sated. But knew that eventually she'll have to practice on living things as well. The avatar was pulled from her thoughts when she felt Naruto's hand on her shoulder. I know it won't be easy. But I promise, I won't have you do anything you're too uncomfortable with and we'll do it whenever you're ready. Said Naruto, not wanting to force Korra to do something she didn't want to do. While he was fully expecting her to bloodbend living creatures when she got to that point, Naruto also won't force Korra to do it too quickly. Knowing that it'd only make her more scared and more susceptible to Zai's influence. The more afraid she is of the power, the easier it'll be for the dark spirit to get inside her head. I know and thank you. But this was my choice and I'm sticking to it. Korra replied, smiling at the whiskered blonde, who nodded and smiled as well, before they resumed their positions and listened to the heartbeats around the island. Though partway through, Korra opened her eyes again, as something Naruto said reminded her of something she'd been meaning to ask. Hey, I also wanted to ask. What's with that blood suit that Zai put you in at the rally? Is that just to scare people? Korra asked, wondering if the suit was just a means to scare people, or if it served some other purpose. Partly. Yes, it is good for terrifying people, something Carnage enjoys, since it gives him entertainment in chasing people. Rather than if they fought back against who they thought was just a normal person. But it's also to hide my identity, as despite what he likes claiming, we're not invincible. Yet. So the suit is to hide my identity and make it impossible for me to be connected to any of his attacks. Allowing me to continue moving around without worry of being hunted down or labeled as a criminal. The suit also has other purposes, like making me stronger and faster than any normal bender. More than I usually am, given how I can gain more elements and strengthen my ability to bend them by drinking the blood of a bender. Along with being able to stick to walls. But its most dangerous ability is that because the suit is made entirely from my blood, it can be shaped and molded into any weapon Carnage can think of, turning my entire body into a weapon. And as you saw the night we fought, I'm practically indestructible like that, since I would just regenerate or reform from any damage that was dealt to me. Naruto explained, as Korra looked at him in surprise, not thinking the blood suit would come with that kind of power. It actually made her grateful that Carnage seemed to have been holding back against her, likely to taunt her that he didn't even need to try in order to beat her. Wow. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that it was made by Carnage, I'd really want a suit like that. Said Korra, admitting how awesome it'd be to have a suit that'd give her that kind of power, in addition to her bending. Plus, Korra would secretly admit, despite looking terrifying, it was also really badass. Yeah, it is useful. I've actually been considering recreating it. Naruto revealed, surprising Korra once again. You can still make the suit. But isn't Zai sealed away by that talisman? Said Korra, with Naruto nodding in confirmation. Yeah, he is. But I still have access to all the powers that being his host grants me, he just can't take control of my body. And I've been thinking of recreating the suit as a way to keep my identity hidden. Should I ever need to bend multiple elements or use some other abilities that aren't normal. But I haven't been able to think of how it should look since I don't want to just use Carnage's version of it. Naruto said, not wanting to look like Carnage when he does use the suit. Well if you want, I could help you think of some ideas for what the suit could look like. Offered Korra, figuring it could be fun, helping Naruto design his new suit. I'd appreciate the help. But don't think this'll get you out of your training. Naruto said, smirking, which Korra returned, while also being glad to see he was being more expressive as compared to his usual stoicism. Wouldn't dream of it. Replied Korra before the two resumed her training. Time skip 3 days. Naruto sighed as he sat outside, looking over the drawings of the designs and ideas he and Korra had come up with a few days ago for his suit. While they were good, he still felt that something was missing from it. "What are you doing?" asked Jinora from behind Naruto, surprising the blonde that he didn't hear her footsteps or her heartbeat. "I was deeper in thought than originally I believed," Naruto thought as Jinora looked over his shoulder at the drawings. "Wow, those are really good, I didn't know you could draw, Naruto. But what are they for?" Jinora asked, wondering what the designs were for. "It's actually a suit that Korra is helping me design. So I can hide my identity should I ever need to use the abilities that I can use due to the spirit inside of me. Or if it ever takes control and causes any problems, so no trouble is drawn to me, Korra, or your family for letting me stay here," answered Naruto, with Jinora looking at the designs with renewed interest. "Well, they definitely look pretty cool. Like from some of the books I read." "Oh. Like the books about Lord Zuko's time as the Blue Spirit when he saved Grandpa Ong when he was captured by the Fire Nation. Or when he and his uncle Iroh went into hiding." Jinora said, always eager to talk about the books she's read, especially about the adventures that her grandparents and their friends went on during the 100-Year War. "Blue Spirit?" asked Naruto, raising a brow, while Jinora nodded with a smile. "Yeah, it was the name Lord Zuko was given when he was disguised. He first created the guise after Grandpa Ong was captured by Admiral Zhao. As at the time, it was Zuko's mission to capture the Avatar and regain his lost honor so he can return home. But he couldn't directly free the Avatar or he would be branded a traitor. So, he created the persona of the Blue Spirit where he was dressed all in black and wielded a set of Dao blades so he wouldn't reveal his firebending. With him being named the Blue Spirit due to the blue mask he wore. He freed Ong and the two escaped, but Zuko was knocked out by an archer, with Ong learning who he was. But despite them being enemies and the times Zuko's tried capturing him, Ong still saved him. After that, Zuko only used the Blue Spirit disguise during the time he and his uncle Iroh were being chased by his sister, Azula, and stole in order for them to survive. But when they went to Ba Sing Se to start a new life and remain hidden, Zuko gave up the Blue Spirit identity after freeing Ong's Sky Bison, Appa. Jinora explained, having heard the story from her grandmother and even Zuko whenever he visited the island. While Naruto was surprised to hear this, having only ever heard the basic details of the adventures of Ong and his friends. Nothing about the details in between him mastering the elements and defeating the Fire Lord. So it was interesting to hear such a story about the former banished prince turned Fire Lord. "I guess you really like stories, huh?" Naruto stated in amusement while Jinora blushed in embarrassment, realizing she probably was rambling again, something she tended to do whenever talking about books and stories. "Yeah, sorry if I rambled or bothered you," said Jinora, only for Naruto to chuckle and wave it off. "It's fine. There's nothing wrong with enjoying books and stories, it's actually a good thing for you to do. As it helps you learn new things and grow from knowing about the experiences of others. Plus, you never know when something you read will come in handy," Naruto replied, making the young airbender smile and nod. "So, you got any ideas for the suit?" questioned Naruto, showing Jinora the design again, wondering if she might have some ideas. How about an emblem or something unique? Each of the 4 nations have their own emblem, with the city of Zaofu having created their own unique emblem from the Earth Kingdoms. You could add one to your suit to show that it's yours, something you created," Jinora suggested, with Naruto looking at the design while humming in thought at the suggestion. "That could be a good idea. Thanks, Jinora," said Naruto while smiling at the girl, which she returned. "Glad I could help," Jinora stated. "You know, you're pretty smart and mature for a kid," Naruto said, smirking, while the airbender looked offended. "Hey, I'm not a kid. I'm almost 11 and have learned everything my dad has to teach about airbending," stated Jinora while crossing her arms, not liking to be called a kid, especially since she's the most mature and intelligent out of her siblings, despite Ikki's claims of her being mean and bossy. Sure. Whatever you say, kid," said Naruto, with his smirk widening as Jinora blew a gust of wind at him in response. Though their attention then turned when they heard footsteps approaching and saw Tenzin walking towards them. "Jinora, there you are, I was looking for you," Tenzin said, with Jinora standing up and facing her father. "Did you need something, Dad?" asked Jinora, with the airbending master shaking his head. "No, I just wanted to tell you, your grandmother has arrived. And the others should already be meeting her at the docks," answered Tenzin, making his daughter smile brightly. Gran is here," Jinora said, before running off to go meet Katara, with Tenzin smiling at her retreating figure before sighing while Naruto stood up. "I'm guessing Katara knows about me," stated Naruto as he pocketed his drawings, while Tenzin nodded. "Yes, I had tried keeping your presence here a secret. But after she learned about what was happening in the city, along with the appearance of carnage, my mother contacted me. And it was difficult keeping your presence here a secret, along with you being IS host. Tenzin revealed, while being relieved that he was at least able to keep Korra's bloodbending training a secret, knowing exactly how his mother would react to such news. But, if there's one thing my mother kept in her age, it's her stubbornness and refusal to give up on finding out what's going on. Eventually, she learned about you being here and combined with Carnage's appearance at the rally. It wasn't long before she pieced together what was happening and decided to come here, herself. Said Tenzin, with Naruto nodding, while knowing things will be tense with Katara being here and her stance on bloodbending. Oh, what a shame, she chose to reject my gift. She had such talent as a child of blood, such rage and hatred within her against the Fire Nation, and especially the man who killed her mother. She could have been powerful, but instead chose to reject my gift. I'll take a special enjoyment in killing her. Carnage said, despising any waterbenders that receive his gift and refuse to use it. Well, then it'd be best to get this over with. Said Naruto, ignoring Carnage's threats of what he'll do to Katara as he and Tenzin went down to the docks to greet Katara. When they arrived, they saw that Tenzin's family was already there, with his children crowding around Katara. Before she caught sight of her son and smiled. Tenzin, it's so good to see you again. Katara said, while hugging her son. It's good to see you as well, mother, and you're just in time. Pima should be expecting any day now. Tenzin said, wrapping an arm around his wife as Pima smiled and rubbed her stomach. I'm sure the newest addition will be eager to meet their grandmother, just like their siblings. Said Pima, with Katara smiling and nodding, glad for the chance to be here for the birth of her newest grandchild. Though her attention then turned to Naruto, who Katara regarded with a guarded and wary expression. Though despite knowing he's a bloodbender and the host of the Spirit of Blood, himself. Katara was at least willing to try and be formal with him. Though she will also be ready, should here's I try something. As well she is old, that didn't mean her skills have diminished. And you must be Naruto, it's nice to meet you as well. Tenzin's told me a lot about you. Katara said, with Naruto not needing to listen to her heart to tell she's lying. I'm sure he has. It's honor to meet a waterbending master of your renowned status. Said Naruto with a slight bow, knowing that while things were tense, there's no denying that Katara is one of the greatest waterbenders and healers in the world. Everyone's attention then turned to the dock as another boat arrived, with Korra and Naga getting off. The Avatar had just returned from the pro-bending arena after practicing with her teammates. Though when Korra saw Katara, she was momentarily surprised before smiling and went over to her. Katara. It's so great to see you again. Korra said, while bowing to her waterbending master, with Katara smiling and hugging her student. You as well, Korra, you as well. Replied Katara. Later. It must be great for you to be back here. Korra said as she and Katara walked around Air Temple Island. It is. I remember when Aang had finally finished building it all. He was so happy, and so was I at seeing the home where we'd get to raise our family together. Said Katara, smiling as she looked around, remembering all the time she spent here with her family. So I'm guessing you're here because of Naruto. Stated Korra, having seen the way her former master looked at Naruto, the same wary look she's seen everyone else that's in the know gave him. Yes. After learning what happened here and who he has within him, I felt it was necessary to come here myself. Now I know you are more than capable of taking care of yourself. But Korra, I think it might be best that you be careful around Naruto. Katara said, with the Avatar frowning in annoyance, feeling like she always hears the same thing when talking to someone about Naruto. Naruto isn't a threat, he wasn't in control of himself and only a puppet for his eye to use. And he has a talisman that keeps him from being controlled. Said Korra, with Katara nodding, having learned about the seal keeping eye from controlling Naruto. Perhaps, but I still believe you should be careful and on guard should something ever happen to break that seal. I just don't wish to see you get hurt by letting your feelings cloud your judgment, Korra. Katara said. I'm not letting anything cloud my judgment. I know Naruto isn't some monster everyone's making him out to be. Retorted Korra while storming off before she said something she would regret, with the girl having enough of everyone telling her to be careful around Naruto or that he was dangerous. With Korra soon finding herself at the meditation pavilion as she sighed before sitting down in a meditative position, wanting to try and clear her mind and calm down. Seriously, why can't people see that Naruto isn't cruel or bloodthirsty, like Zai? He doesn't want to hurt anyone and even tried to get rid of his bending to do so. But they just see him as dangerous or like he's going to start killing people. Well, I seem to be the only one really making an effort to get to know Naruto and help him. I just wish someone else would encourage me to help him rather than tell me to be careful. That I am doing the right thing. Korra thought, knowing that while she's becoming more assured of herself and her decisions, it still felt good to get some encouragement every now and then. You are doing the right thing, Korra. The sudden voice made Korra's eyes snap open before they widened in shock at who she saw sitting right in front of her. He looked older and had a beard along his jawline, but otherwise, he looked exactly same as his statue in the bay. Ong. Korra muttered in shock and awe, while Ong smiled at his successor. You're finally in touch with your spiritual self. Stated Ong, as Korra's shock soon turned into excitement. I can't believe it. You're here, you're actually here, I'm really talking to you and contacting you. Korra said, excited that she's actually managed to contact her past life, even if she didn't intend to, it still made her excited at finally making progress in her spiritual training. I am and you are. And you have your friend to thank for it, while he may not like it, he's very spiritually connected as well. Along with helping you become more confident in who you are, both as a person and as the avatar. Said Ong, with Korra's excitement calming slightly, while thinking over his words, realizing he meant Naruto. Yeah, he's really helped me a lot. Korra said, while smiling slightly, knowing Naruto's been a great help to her since they met. Ong, do you really think I'm doing the right thing in helping Naruto? Even with everything Zai has forced him to do? Korra asked, with Ong nodding. I do. As despite what's happened, Naruto himself isn't a bad person, the only thing he's guilty of is being human. When he allowed Zai to enter his body, he did so at a time when he didn't care who it was. Only that they offered him the power he desired for revenge, while having no one there to help him. While she may not like it, Katara could have easily been in the same place as Naruto, if not for her family and friends being there for her. So never doubt what you're doing, Korra. As you may not know it, but you simply being there for Naruto is helping him, greatly. And never give up in pursuing him, no matter how much he pushes you away. Replied Ong, emphasizing with Korra in her pursuit of Naruto, like his own pursuit of Katara. Granted she wasn't possessed by a dark spirit, but he still never gave up and was happy when they could finally be together. And if he were still alive, he would no doubtfully do the same thing as Korra and try to help Naruto, rather than condemn him or be cautious of him. Korra looked at Ong in surprise at his words, though looked away when he mentioned her pursuing Naruto, feeling there was another meaning behind his words. In fact, I'd say that Naruto and Zai are quite similar to yourself, Korra. Ong added, making the girl look at him in confusion. What do you mean? How are we similar? Korra asked, only to get a chuckle from her past life. You'll learn in time. Just believe in yourself and your decisions, Korra. The best thing any avatar can do is always remain true to themselves. Said Ong, making Korra smile and nod before bowing her head. Thank you for the advice, it really means a lot to me. Korra said, with Ong nodding before he began vanishing. Of course. And don't forget, we'll always be here whenever you need help. Said Ong, before he fully vanished, leaving Korra alone to think over his words. Feeling better than she was before, Korra got up and went to find Naruto and talk with him. Only to find him walking around the training area. Hey, I was just looking for you. Korra said, glad that he was already nearby. Yeah, I was just taking a walk around the island. Figured it'd be better if I avoided being around Katara for a while. Said Naruto, with Korra wincing at his words, but understood his reasoning. Yeah, but don't worry, I'm sure things will get better in time. And no matter what, I'm here if you need anything or want to talk. Replied Korra as she smiled at him, while being glad when she saw him relax slightly and return the smile. Thank you, Korra. Naruto said, feeling better at hearing her words, having felt a little worried that with Katara being here, she'd try to make sure Korra didn't spend time around him. Not to mention, if she found out about him teaching her bloodbending. Don't mention it, we're friends. Also I've been meaning to say that if you want, I can help you improve your waterbending, earthbending and firebending. Since I doubt you have a lot of time to practice or learn actual bending techniques. And I figure it's only fair that if you're training me, that I can train you as well. Said Korra, with Naruto thinking it over and knew that while he was a powerful bender, he also didn't really have any actual technique and mostly just did it on instinct, rather than with any actual skill. Yeah, that'd be great. Naruto replied with a small smile, which Korra returned. Great. But fair warning, I've never been known to hold back. Said Korra, while flashing Naruto a smirk. I'd be insulted if you did. Naruto stated with a smirk of his own, before the two got into their own stances, ready to start training right now. Time skip 3 days. Korra held a blob of water in her hands, while looking at Mako and Bolin with a determined look. Quickly, she split the water blobs in two, and rapidly launches each smaller water bullet at Mako and Bolin. Bolin raised his right arm in front of him, with an earth disc following the motion and hovering in front of his face. As the water blob Korra launched at him strikes the disc, he was shoved back a little by the impact. Meanwhile, Mako moved back and twisted around, vaporizing the incoming blob with an arc of fire, before immediately retaliating with 2 fire punches. Bolin's earth disc was destroyed by Mako's fire attack. While Korra aimed another water blast at Mako, with the firebender jumping over it. While Bolin launches an earth disc at Korra, forcing her to shield herself with water from a nearby tank. Mako then fired a blast at each of his teammates, which both of them block with their respective element. The second fire blast hit Bolin square in the stomach, throwing him back. But not want to go down easily, Bolin threw his fist, launching one last earth disc. Well, Korra launched a water blob straight at Mako, but was knocked back with a grunt as the earth disc slammed into her stomach. With Mako grunting, when Korra's water attack hits him straight in the face, flinging him to the ground several meters from where he was standing. They're pretty good. Naruto thought, having accompanied Korra to her practice to see how the three fought, having gotten a good feel for Korra's own abilities during their training. Now he wanted to see how she was when restricted by the rules of pro bending, along with wanting to see how good Mako and Bolin were, and he could see they were really great. Not a moment later, all three fire ferrets sat up laughing before getting to their feet. That was really great. Keep this up and we'll have a spot in the tournament in no time, said Mako, taking off his helmet, glad for how great they've been doing in training. I feel like a winner already, Korra stated while smirking. We've got this in the bag, said Bolin, eager for the chance to show off their skills in the tournament. Okay, come on, team huddle time. It's our first match of the tournament tomorrow night. I know the three of us haven't been a team for very long, but even so, the fire ferrets have never been this good. Are we ready? Mako asked, with Korra and Bolin nodding in determination. We're ready, Korra and Bolin replied. Not quite, since you'll be needing these, said Asami as she entered the gym, carrying a bag, with Mako smiling at seeing her. Hey Asami. Mako greeted. Good morning, sweetie, replied Asami, smiling, while handing them the Future Industries uniforms. These new uniforms look great, Mako said as he looked over the uniforms, glad to see how they turned out. You look great, champ, stated Asami, before they did an Eskimo kiss. Do they do this all the time? Naruto asked, wondering if it was normal for couples to have such displays in front of others. Yes, stated Bolin with a deadpan expression. Yoo-hoo, Korra replied, before glancing at Naruto, who looked at her as well, both of them silently contemplating their own feelings for each other. Oh, Naruto, I didn't see you there for a moment, said Asami, a little embarrassed at seeing Naruto was here and after the display of affection between her and Mako. Well, teammates and Naruto, I'll see you guys later. Asami and I have a lunch date, Mako said as Asami grabbed his arm before the couple left, with the three waving at them. Okay, we'll check you guys later. You know, we'll see you when we see ya, said Bolin, while Korra went over and grabbed her bag. See ya Bolin, Naruto and I gotta get back to the island so I can train with Tenzin, Korra said, while waving at the earthbender as she and Naruto left. Later. After training with Tenzin and Naruto, Korra had gone off with Ikki and Jinora to fill up the feeders for the lemurs. So, how's it going with you and Naruto? You've been spending a lot of time together lately, Jinora said, having noticed how Naruto and Korra seemed to be spending more time together than usual. Oh, yeah. Tell us all about the magical romance, said Ikki, eager to hear the details, while Korra blushed brightly at their words. What are you two talking about? There's nothing going on between me and Naruto, Korra denied, only for the two to roll their eyes. But let's just pretend for a second I am interested in him. What would I do? Asked Korra, wondering if she could get some advice on how to approach Naruto with her feelings. I just read a historical saga where the heroine fell in love with the enemy general's son, who's supposed to marry the princess. You should do what she did, Jinora said in excitement. Tell me, Korra said, eager to hear what she had to say. She rode a dragon into battle and burned down the entire country. Then she jumped into a volcano. It was so romantic, said Jinora, swooning at how romantic it was, while Korra's excitement began fading at the unrealistic idea, not to mention how counterproductive it'd be. Well, I'm sure Carnage would appreciate the first part. Naruto, not so much, Korra thought dryly. No. The best way to win a boy's heart is to brew a love potion of rainbows and sunsets that makes true lovers sprout wings and fly into a magical castle in the sky, where they get married and eat clouds with spoons and use stars as ice cubes in their moonlight punch. Forever and ever and ever, Ikki said before airbending herself into the air. The volcano is starting to make more sense to me now, muttered Korra, starting to wonder what else she should have expected from the two little girls before they heard laughing and saw Pima and Katara walking towards them. Oh, hey Pima, Katara. How long were you standing there? Korra asked as the two women smiled. Long enough. But trust me, I know what you're going through, said Pima, with Katara nodding in agreement. Indeed. I had the same problem with Aang, we both cared greatly for each other. But he was the Avatar and the war was still going on. He had to master the elements and defeat Ozai, and I didn't wish to distract him, along with needing to sort out my own feelings, Katara said, understanding what Korra was going through. Though well she didn't like the idea of Korra pursuing a relationship with Naruto, Katara also wasn't going to stop her from being with the one she wants. So what did you both do? Korra asked. Well, for the longest time, I did nothing. I was so shy and was scared of rejection, but eventually it became too painful to do nothing. So I hung my chin out there and I confessed my love to Tenzin. And the rest is history. Pima answered, glad she had taken a chance and had been able to get the one she loved and now had an amazing family. Wow. The three said, amazed at the touching story, before Katara walked up to Korra. Korra, if there's one thing I've learned in my life. It's that sometimes, you have to take a leap of faith. Said Katara, with Korra looking off to the side, before smiling. A leap of faith. Korra muttered. But Naruto. Meanwhile, Naruto sat on the cliffside, looking up at the sky as snow descended around him, contemplating his own feelings for Korra. He knew he liked her, really liked her, but Naruto wasn't sure if he should take a chance and pursue her. Knowing anyone around him was bound to get hurt, and the last thing he wanted to do was hurt Korra. The whiskered blonde was then pulled from his thoughts when he heard an approaching heartbeat before looking to see Tenzin. You seem to come out here a lot, usually whenever you seem deep in thought. Tenzin stated, having noticed how Naruto came here whenever he was in thought. Yes, I'm getting predictable, I'll be sure to change it up. Said Naruto, making the airbending master chuckle. I'm guessing it's about Korra. Tenzin said knowingly. Yeah. I know what I feel for her, which I probably shouldn't, given my situation. But I've never met anyone like her. Said Naruto, knowing that Korra is special, and not just because she's the avatar, with Tenzin nodding in agreement. Yes, she's certainly a remarkable young woman. Tenzin said, having seen her grow from a child, always shouting that she's the avatar, into someone that he's sure his father would be proud to call his successor. Naruto, let me give you some advice, from someone who was once where you are. Don't worry about what ifs or about your situation. Sometimes, you simply need to take a chance to see where things will take you, rather than wonder what could have been. Said Tenzin, given his past relationship with Lin before realizing Pima was the one for him. Naruto looked at Tenzin, before looking out over the bay and thinking over his words for a few moments, until finally he nodded. Yeah, you're right. Naruto said smiling, not wanting to lose a chance to be with Korra, while planning to ask her out after her pro bending match. Later. At the pro bending arena, the crowd was getting excited for the start of the match. While the announcer, Shiro Shinobi, began commentating. Folks, after a year of waiting, the Pro Bending Championship is finally here. Tonight is the first set of matches in our single elimination 16-team bracket. And I gotta tell ya, these are the most tenacious and talented bending trios this arena has ever seen. Said Shiro, as the crowd cheered. Introducing our first team, the Future Industries Fire Ferrets. And their opponents, the Red Sands Rabaroos. The ring announcer said, as both teams stood on the extending bridges soon, before stepping onto the arena. The two teams stood across from each other, before they each launched attacks that collided against each other, the moment the bell rang. With the collisions cancelling out the attacks, while forcing the teams to step away to avoid being thrown back. With all three Rabaroos launching a barrage of attacks at Korra, with the avatar flipping out of the way, with Mako blasting an earth disc that was launched at Korra. Before she and Bolin launched attacks at the firebending Rabaroo, sending them back to the second zone. Followed by managing to launch the other two back as well. With it not being long, before all three of them were down, winning them the first round. When the second round started, Bolin was put on the defensive until Korra came to his defense, as they launched one of the Rabaroos back to zone 2. Eventually ending in all three of them being taken down again, winning them the second round as well. Before the Fire Ferret soon took the third round as well, after pushing all the Rabaroos back to the third zone, winning the round and the match. All three rounds go to the Future Industries Fire Ferrets, winning them the opening match of the tournament. Declared the announcer. That's what I'm talking about. Bolin cheered, before addressing their fans, while Korra and Mako returned. Wow, we were really connecting out there in that ring. Mako said, amazed at how well they worked together. Yeah. There's no way we can lose. Said Korra, feeling pumped up from not just the tournament, but also telling Naruto how she feels. Well, you seem pumped up. Did something interesting happen? Mako asked, making Korra blush. Oh well, nothing happened yet. Said Korra, while muttering the last part to herself. What was tha? Said Mako, only to be interrupted when the changing area door opened, revealing Naruto and Asami with Pabu on her shoulder. Congratulations, guys. You were so amazing out there. Asami said, while smiling and kissing Mako's cheek. You were really great out there, Korra. Said Naruto, while smiling at the avatar, which she returned. Yeah, I just got some good advice that really helped me with some stuff I was thinking about. Korra replied. The same for me. And listen, I was wondering if maybe you wanted to go out tonight. Naruto asked nervously, with Korra looking at him in surprise, not expecting him to actually ask her out. Yeah, yes. I'd love to. Just let me get changed. Korra said, smiling in excitement, with Naruto smiling as well, along with being relieved that she said yes. Great. Then let's go. Said Naruto as the two exited the room with neither of them noticing Bolin frozen in place before he lowered his head and sat down on the bench, saddened at losing his chance to ask Korra out himself. With Mako looking at his brother with a frown before going over and putting a hand on his shoulder. Don't worry bro, there are plenty of girls out there. Mako said, with Bolin sighing and nodding. Yeah, but I was really looking forward to seeing if Korra and I could work. Said Bolin, having felt that something was going on between Naruto and Korra, but had hoped that he'd have a chance to try first. You gonna be alright? Asked Mako, with Bolin nodding once again. Yeah, I will be. I just need some time right now. Bolin replied, before exiting the room. Later with Naruto and Korra. After Korra got changed, she and Naruto had headed out to a restaurant that Naruto had found, called Naruto's Seaweed Noodlery. With the two having gone inside, while Naga rested outside. So, how do you like it? Naruto asked as they ate their noodles. It's delicious and totally authentic. I didn't realize how much I missed Water Tribe grub. Replied Korra, surprised at how authentic the food was to Water Tribe food back home. Great, I'm glad you like it. I asked around for any places that served Water Tribe food and was pointed here. And it's really great. Naruto said, with Korra nodding in agreement. They are good noodles. Said Korra, with her mouth full, before swallowing and taking notice of someone looking at them. Hey, who's that creepy guy over there who keeps glaring at us? Korra asked, confused at who the stranger that was glaring at them is, with Naruto looking and frowning when he saw who it was. Oh, ignore them. From what I've heard, the guy with the hair is Tano and the White Falls Wolfbits. A pro-bending team that's won the tournament 3 years in a row. Naruto said, not seeing what the big deal with them was, with Korra narrowing her eyes at them, leading to Tano standing up and walking over to them with his entourage. Well, if it isn't the avatar of the fire ferrets. Pro-bending saddest excuse for a team. Along with some nobody. Or is he another one of those loser ferrets? Tell me, how did a couple of amateurs like you luck your way into the tournament? Especially you, avatar. You know, if you'd like to learn how a real pro bends, I could give you some private lessons. Ano said, while leaning in closely to Korra, much to her annoyance as Naruto's eyes briefly flashed red. You wanna go toe-to-toe with me, pretty boy? Demanded Korra, standing up and glaring at Tano, who smirked. Go for it. I'll give you the first shot. Tano taunted, knowing if she hit him, they're out of the tournament. Wow, you must be a terrible bender. Stated Naruto, making everyone look at him, with Tano glaring at him. What did you say, Blondie? Demanded Tano, with Naruto smirking at him. That you must be a terrible bender. After all, if you have to resort to getting your opponents disqualified. Then I think that says a lot about your own skills, or lack thereof. Naruto said, angering the waterbender. Or maybe you just enjoy making fun of people to stroke your pea-sized ego. Because you're really nothing but a third-rate bender that couldn't hope to bend even a puddle. Added Naruto, with Korra suppressing her laughter as Tano's face turned an interesting shade of red. To think of it, what even are you? I honestly can't tell if you're a guy or a girl, since it really doesn't look like you have anything between your legs. Or are you just so small that it's practically non-existent? Naruto taunted. Now officially having enough, Tano shouted in anger before bending a blast of water straight at Naruto. Much to his and Korra's horror when they saw the blast was heading straight for the talisman. Thankfully, they managed to redirect the blast in time before it could hit Naruto. But Korra then whistling, making Naga's head burst through the window with the polar bear dog roaring in Tano's face. Making him stumble back with a scream. Though he managed to regain his composure, acting like nothing happened before walking away. Well, that's truly a shame. Here I am, so close to getting free, and you just have to ruin it. Admit it, you wanted me to come out and rip that sorry excuse for a waterbender apart. Said Zai, with Naruto grunting and ignoring the spirit. You okay? Korra asked, with Naruto nodding in response. Yeah, just Zai being an asshole, nothing new. Let's just have fun. Said Naruto, not wanting the night to be ruined, with Korra nodding in agreement. After they finished their food, the two had gone for a walk around the city. Going through the park and seeing the fireflies, along with the moon shining on the lake. Before they eventually went to the top of Harmony Tower, getting a view of the entire city. Wow, the view up here is amazing. Korra said, having not seen the city from this high up, with it being better with all the lights. Yeah, though I actually have another reason for bringing us up here. Said Naruto, before looking around, glad to see no one else up here with them. What do you mean? Korra asked, as Naruto stepped back. Just watch. replied Naruto before he began focusing, before grunting as blood began emerging from his arms and legs. Then to Korra's amazement, it began covering his body and taking shape into a suit, one similar to Carnage's, but less monstrous and more smooth. Being a red bodysuit with black kneepads, a black chest that went down the center of his stomach and stretched down over his outer arms to his fingers, leaving the rest a crimson red color. Along with a red mask covering his head with smooth wide eyes and a black hood with a red interior. While on his chest was a large spider emblem in red with a matching black emblem on his back. "What do you think?" Naruto said as Korra looked at him in amazement. "That is so awesome," Korra said, grinning in excitement at seeing Naruto's suit. "You think so?" asked Naruto, smiling under his mask as Korra nodded. "Definitely. It looks even better than seeing it as just a drawing," Korra said while looking Naruto over, admiring the suit and how it clung to him. "Well, that's not even the best part yet," Naruto said. "There's more?" Korra asked, excited at the chance to see more. "Yeah. But first, I need to ask, do you trust me?" Naruto questioned, confusing Korra at the question. "Of course I trust you," replied Korra, only to yelp in surprise when Naruto wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her close. "Then hold on tight and don't freak out," Naruto said. Then without warning, Naruto jumped right off the ledge of the tower, with Korra screaming in shock before forcing herself to calm down and wrap her arms around his neck. With Naruto holding out his arm and firing a web-like extension from the back of his hand that attached to a building before they began swinging through the air. Looking around, Korra watched in amazement as they swung throughout the entire city. "This, I don't even know what to say," said Korra, smiling in awe as she looked around, watching everything fly past them, feeling like they were flying through the air. "Yeah, it's a feeling you never forget," Naruto said, knowing if there's one good thing about being IS host, it's being able to swing through the air like this. Naruto swung them through the entire city before eventually making his way to Air Temple Island, where he launched them high into the air towards the island while managing to land on it. Though they stumbled slightly when they touched the ground while Naruto's suit receded back inside him. "That was, thank you for that, Naruto, it was amazing," Korra said, smiling at him, which Naruto returned. "I'm glad you had fun, Korra, and that you said yes," said Naruto, glad he took a chance and asked her out. "Well, since you showed me your suit and let me experience swinging through the air, it's only fair that I give you something," said Korra, knowing exactly what to give him. "Korra, you don't have to give me anything, as long as you're happy, that's all," Naruto said, only to be cut off and surprised when Korra pressed her lips against his. While surprised at the kiss, Naruto soon returned it, much to Korra's happiness. Before they soon separated and smiled at each other. "I think I can accept that," said Naruto, making Korra giggle. "Good night, Naruto," Korra said before heading back to her room. "Good night, Korra," replied Naruto while feeling a sense of peace he hasn't felt before. Next day. The next day, the fire ferrets went against the porcupines. Though not without having some difficulty, as Bolin was still feeling off about losing his chance with Korra. But the three eventually managed to pull out the win in the end, earning them a place in the semifinals. With Naruto and Asami congratulating their respective partners, though Naruto and Korra weren't as affectionate as Mako and Asami. Given they only just entered in a relationship and wanted to try and take things slow. "Hey, Naruto, could I talk to you for a minute?" Bolin asked, with Naruto looking at the earthbender and nodded before they went over to a corner of the changing room. "What did you want to talk about?" said Naruto, with Bolin sighing and rubbing the back of his head. "Look, I don't want to cause any problems, but I really like Korra. I think she's a really great person and a better friend. But I guess I wasn't fast enough, so all I'm asking is take care of her. She's someone special, and not just from being the avatar," Bolin said, with Naruto looking at him for a moment before nodding as he looked at Korra. "Yeah, she really is. And you have nothing to worry about, Bolin, I'll always be there for Korra, no matter what, and will do everything I can to keep her safe. And I'm sure that somewhere out there's a girl perfect for you," said Naruto while patting him on the back, with Bolin nodding and smiling. "Yeah, you're probably right," Bolin said, knowing that while he lost his chance with Korra, like Mako said, there are other girls, and maybe he'll find the one meant for him. Next day. The following day, the fire ferrets went against the buzzard wasps, with all three of them having much better teamwork again, and defeated the buzzard wasps, earning them a place in the finals. And the fire ferrets take the win and are heading for the finals, Shiro declared as the crowd cheered loudly. "Alright, we did it," said Bolin while throwing his fist in the air. "Yeah, we did. We'll be ready for anything the other finalists throw at us," Mako said, feeling pumped and ready to face off against their opponents in the finals. Korra didn't say anything as she was focused on only Naruto when he and Asami entered the changing room. With the Avatar's excitement at winning the match and getting into the finals, combined with the happiness she felt at being with Naruto getting the better of her. Leading to her running across the bridge, with Naruto being forced to catch and when she jumped towards him. And before he could say anything, Korra pulled him into a makeout session, seeing it as the only way to convey her current feelings. With Naruto being surprised at the suddenness of it before he happily began kissing her back. Though when they heard the cheering crowd, the two remembered exactly where they were. Making them quickly pull away, while blushing in embarrassment at having just made out in front of a crowd. Even more so, when Asami smiled brightly at them. "Oh, congratulations you two. I thought you both seemed more affectionate yesterday, but I wasn't too sure. But I'm really happy to see you two together, since I did feel like there was something going on between you both." Asami said teasingly, making their blushes intensify. "Hey, we could even go on a double date sometime, now. The two of you, with me and Mako," suggested Asami, like the idea of the four of them going out together, embarrassing them even more, along with Mako. Asami, maybe we should hold off on a double date since we're all still new to being in relationships," Mako said, with the heiress simply smirking and grabbing his arm. "They're winners, the Wolfbits." Hearing the sudden announcement made everyone's eyes widen, as they could have sworn the match started not even 2 minutes ago. But when they looked, they were further shocked to see the Wolfbits' opponents being carried away by paramedics. The fire ferrets trading uneasy looks, now realizing that they were in for the fight of their lives when the finals roll around. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.